Sort of Coming Chapter 943. Lu Qin followed out of the plaque, Chincho, and the couplet was just a pavilion with the word Mang Wake. After walking down the steps, he turned his head and took a look. I don't know when it will be the next time I revisit the old place. The identity of the old Master Yao, the master of our kiln, was already known when you set up the fortune-telling booth back then. Pan Dao was not sure about Yao's identity at the time, so I could only guess a little bit. Deducing the secrets in the Lizhu cave is the most thankless and it is easy to backfire. Then do you think Mr. Qi knows? Qi Jingchen stayed in the Lizhu cave for a long time, and he has the identity of a saint. Most of it has been known for a long time. Therefore, I have been rehearsing the matter afterwards, especially after a long time. Accident. The small town has accumulated 3,000 years of huge calamity, and the cause and effect of all the local people in the small town are destined to be inevitable and will never fall in the empty place, but those who are willing to clean up this mess. In fact, in addition to the Confucian Qi Jingchen, there are many others. Old Man Yao, whose background is hidden, comes from a Western Buddhist country. So Qi Jingchen was planning to take Xiao Yao out of Lizhu cave at the beginning. Either he knew the matter, so he could leave with confidence, or he was sure of the matter, but he didn't change his original intention. He just used a blinding method. As for the reason, it's probably the town. The 4-character plaque of that crab shop is out, dear part. To put it simply, in Lu Chen's view, it was like he, senior brother Yudo, and the whole Bai Yujing were all smashed by Old Man Yao. However, Lu Qin was convinced that since his skills were not as good as others, he stood obediently and was beaten right away. As Lu Qin himself said, it was still too big. Before he left, the mentality of dream interpretation and being brought together was far from enough, but he thought that he had paid enough attention to it. In fact, he still underestimated the background of the Lizhu cave and the complexity of many contexts. The Confucian temple looked at Mr. Qi back then. Did it look like Mr. Bai traveled far to Fuyaozhou with a sword? Well, it's a bit like it, so that's why the little master of the Confucian temple sighed like that. The real murderous intent seems to be due to Mr. Yu Qi's sacrifice of the second natal character. Is Bai Yujing's avenue so big? This is a muddle-headed account of the public saying that the public is reasonable and the wife is reasonable. On the journey, the boy in Naipingxiang has never taken the initiative to go to any Confucian academy, any Taoist temple or temple with a lot of incense. The first time an exception was made, it seemed to be the Xinqiang temple in the blessed land of lotus roots. I often chatted with the old monk and talked about common things. And later the Qinghuan kingdom Jin Guiguan participated in the first mountain ceremony in his life. Except for the Shanaya Academy, which was founded by Mr. Qi himself, it was only later that as a hermit, he participated in the discussions of the Chinese-Turkish Confucian temple. Before that, the straw shoe boy at that time was like a frog at the bottom of a well. He saw that the water and moon at the bottom of the well did not see the sky, or the sky when he looked up was only the head of the well. Then why are you still willing to hand over a round of bright moon and Haotsai in the wild world to Qingming world, where Brother Yu has been sitting for 100 years? 2 things. Yu Do is unwilling to borrow a sword to Mr. Bai across the world. When someone was a visitor to Bai Yujing, he said something strange to Pang Dao, saying that when Brother Yu Do was in charge of Bai Yujing, on the roads of Qingming world, the wheels did not know how many roadside flowers and plants were crushed. Drivers are regarded as ordinary. Ping Dao has not yet figured out what he meant by this sentence. Of course, it's not that Ping Dao doesn't even understand the literal meaning, but it's strange who he is talking about. It's a ghost who is very afraid of ghosts and then finally stopped being afraid of ghosts. In the end, it doesn't seem to matter whether it is afraid or not. Chen Pinggan and Lu Qin just chatted all the way, and walked back to the yard together. Even the Qingtong and Nantaoists did not see anything unusual. Before going down the mountain, Chen Pingan sent a gift to the Lushan Patriarch Hall of the Huangliang School to congratulate the young Jindan on his successful peak. It is an arrow of a seal-carved cloud-shaped talisman with the word time inscribed. It comes from the Jade City of the Cloud Print dynasty in the Wild World, and its cause and effect has been erased by Chen Pingan, who possessed a 14-level Taoist method at that time. Anyway, it is much more valuable than 2 Gyu coins. Earlier on the side of Emperor Huangzong, Chen Pingan also gave a gift to celebrate the restoration of Mengliang Kingdom. A piece of bright red ink on the mountain as a gift to the young emperor, with 3 golden words, treasure as gold. In addition, Chen Pingan also gave the young emperor a bamboo pen with the inscription Everlasting Green, secretly made by the Beiyue Mountain Monarch Mansion in Yunshan Mountain. It is rumored that the green bamboo used to make bamboo pipes comes from the green bamboo of the Qingshan Mountain in the Zhuhai Dongtian of Zhongtu. Therefore, the number is very small and extremely rare. In the Beiyue area of Dei, those who have good deeds have carefully counted them. After so many night outings and banquets, the number of bamboo pens presented by Shanjun Weibo will definitely not exceed 10. Yuanzhan plans to stay in the boundary of Mengliang country for a while longer than expected before returning to the blessed land of Jiang's cloud grottos. Of course, it was to give the golden pill, just to whom, Yuanzhan had his own plan, and the old Guanju left a clue back then. Just this matter, there is no need to talk to outsiders. As for Chen Pingan and Lu Qin, if both parties can accurately calculate the trend of the matter based on their own ability, it does not matter that there is an old watcher, and then act without scruples, then it has nothing to do with Lu Xing. Chen Pingan learned that Master Ni was going to stay here, so he proceeded along the way and suggested that Master Ni be the honorable guest of the Huangliang school. Yuanzhan didn't care about this. After thinking about it, he agreed and said with a smile, Patriarch Jiang and Yunku Fudi, there is a good word from Shanju Lao Qin to help. Chen Pingan nodded and said, I think it is not a big problem. I will personally write a letter to Jiang's ancestral hall. In addition, Chen Pingan left a handwritten Book of Taoism for Lu Shan, which he entrusted to Ni Fuzi to pass it on. It is said that it is a senior on the mountain, who once practiced here, and now this book is waiting for those who are predestined. As for whether it will happen, Chen Pingan is not sure. An opportunity is never determined. Chen Pingan and Guozhuzhou chatted for a while, and then they were about to leave Lushan and return to Tonggizong. Lu Qin squatted under the eaves and looked at the Tsing-Yi boy with a smile. Chen Lingjun hid behind his husband, and silently told himself not to think about anything. The young emperor found Gao Zhen, thanked him sincerely, apologized again, and left Lushan. Mengliang Country West Yusongshan Maishinjun, and Mochizuki River Goddess Nalan Yuji, of course need to be responsible for escorting the emperor back to Beijing. For the young emperor, this trip did not really participate in the climbing trip to observe the ceremony. For the young emperor, it was an extremely pleasant surprise, and it was a rewarding experience. Because Chen Lingjun will serve as the royal worship of the Mengliang kingdom, when the ceremony is over, Chen Lingjun will need to take a trip to the capital to become the royal worship of a country, which is no small matter. What's more, now there is an additional process, which needs to be filed at Dafu Academy. Gao Zhen and Lushan Patriarch's Hall were overjoyed when they learned that a Jade Pure Realm swordsman was willing to serve as a famous guest of the Huangliang sect. As for the Book of Taoism, Gao Zhen knows the importance and the rules of the mountain, and will not publicize it. It will only continue to be placed in a corner of the bookshelf, and really wait for the destined person. Gao Zhen also said sincere words to the young hidden official, Mr. Chen actually doesn't need to be like this. This kind of opportunity is clearly lying under our noses, but our Huangliang faction has missed it for many years, whether it is Mr. Qin or that Li Huai, whether it was taking this book secretly or taking it down the mountain with dignity. I dare not say that the whole Huangliang faction has no complaints in his heart, just say that I sit back and there will never be anything wrong with it. Think. Chen Pingon smiled and said, "It is precisely because Headmaster Gao can say this that I will give this book to Headmaster Gao, and believe that someday there will be someone from the Huangliang faction who might get this opportunity. Sit back and no longer pretend to say anything, just sigh. If everyone can practice in this way, the mountain is really a mountain." The young Taoist priest named Lu Fu nodded vigorously and said, "Who said it wasn't?" At the same time, the young Taoist priest also stretched out his hand to hold down the head of the boy in Tsing-yi next to him, and accompanied him to pecking rice with his chicks. The boy in Tsing-yi grinned and endured. "Wait until Lu Zhangjiao has returned to Qingming World, and then he will do care about it." Lunar New Year's Eve, Luopa Mountain. Before the New Year's Eve dinner, Nuanshu had been busy all day. Early this morning, before the sky was dark, the girl in the pink skirt began to clean all the houses on the Luopa Mountain, and after the work, she carried a bamboo lawn, walked down the mountain with Mr. Zhu. When he reached the gate of the mountain, Nuanshu first greeted Taoist Chief Xianwei, and then hung the sword talisman of Longquan's sword sect at his waist before Yu Feng went to the town. In addition to the master's ancestral house on Ni Ping Alley, Nuanshu also has to go to the house on the east side of the town. Mr. Zhang has not returned from a long journey. When my sister went to the new site of Jianzong in Longquan, Lu Xianyang left the key to Nuanshu, the little butler of Luopa Mountain. After working on this with Mr. Zhu, in the afternoon, I had to help the master to go to the grave. In the bamboo basket, besides a handful of incense, there was also a white porcelain plate with a few slices of tofu and a piece of meat. The glutinous rice cakes were all prepared by Mr. Zhu on the mountain. Although there has always been a woman who doesn't go to the grave in his hometown, Mr. Zhu said it's okay. In the past, when Pei Qian and Xiaomi Li were in the mountains, they were always inseparable and would be busy together. This year they both went to Tongyi's house Xiandu Mountain. Then I returned to the small town, at the ancestral house in Nipping Lane, where I began to post Spring Festival couplets, the Chinese characters for spring, and the Chinese characters for blessing. After obtaining the consent of the master before, Nuanshu will also help the house next door to put on new blessing characters and Spring Festival couplets. Then return to the mountain with Mr. Zhu Yufeng and continue to be busy. Mr. Zhu began to wear an apron and got busy in the kitchen. Tomorrow is the first day of the first month of the new year. According to the rules of the master's hometown, every household will set up broomsticks and can rest for a day without doing anything. According to the old saying in the town, otherwise it will be very toiled throughout the year. On the lotus root blessed land, Pei Xiang, the lord of the fox country, and Shui Jiao Hongxia, were all called by Zhu Lian to the Luopa mountain before the meal. And the new janitor who never slowed down in the wind, the sun and the rain, the Daoist chief Xianwei, had already gone up the mountain to eat and drink. In the future, no one will rob me of this position. I'm sorry, even if the King of Heaven comes, I don't want to move. You have to be conscientious. You are not a sword immortal, or a master of martial arts, or you are a master of cultivating gods. Do you have the face to rob me of such trivial things as gatekeepers? Who have the ability to stand up, come, confront me, Master Dao. I don't say anything, just go to Qinshanju to help preside over justice. Xianwei Mountain early in the morning, the old cook was going to make that New Year's Eve dinner. Xianwei helped the little warm tree, and put up the Spring Festival couplets together with the latter. With hands and feet, Xianwei is still happy to help with this trivial matter. Besides, Master Dao, my eyes are like a torch, how can I not see how important the little warm tree is on Chen Shan's side? I have to say that the little warm tree often comes to the gate of the mountain, bringing some cakes to eat. 2 small food boxes, the one that is full and the one that is empty is brought back to the mountain. People's hearts are all flesh-grown, and Dao Master Xianwei feels warm in his heart. After so many years of wandering, I have been stunned, and I have suffered too much. If my life experience can be opened up in the old account books, what is written on the upper page is not money, too poor, and the price has risen again, not to mention it. I can't afford to live in the Xianjia Inn, and I dare not even approach the gate there. In the shop at the Xianjia ferry, I only dare not touch it. It seems that people are often looked down upon, and I can't blame them all. The 3 words, helpless. I finally found a place to stay. I thought I was living under the fence with my tail sandwiched. I didn't want to be angry. I never wanted to be here. I really didn't feel wronged at all. I didn't think I would be transported by Xianwei. If Xiao Wanshu was bullied by someone in the future, I was a little bit wronged. Lao Tzu is not good at fighting, but he must be the first to scold him. Especially the puns of the girl in the pink skirt, who heard the Taoist name Immortal Wei, the fake Taoist priest of the real year, almost shed tears on the spot. Our family has a good year this year, and I hope that next year it will be even better. I believe it will definitely be even better. Zhu Lian also called to the back mountain, like a young girl from the Chao clan with a pair of birin. Everyone had a lively New Year's Eve dinner, and after a long time, the pair of Bai people from the Shangzhou kingdom of Dali were no longer as cautious as they were when they first went up the mountain. Qin Yuanji went to his home in Zhouqing. Zhu Lian didn't call anyone at Qilong Lane. Shi Rou has already regarded the shop over there as a home. Pei Qian's big disciple, that little dumb boy, is not too happy to come to this side of the mountain, so he can just have a New Year's Eve dinner together with the white-haired boy who named himself Cui Peanut, the shop next door, and the others. The table is big. After the New Year's Eve dinner, Zhu Lian and Wan Shu cleaned up the dishes and chopsticks. Pei Xiang wanted to intervene, but was stared at by a certain lover and had to give up. Then it was the night watch. On the other side of the town, the old people walked and moved, and now few households have the custom of asking for supper. Little Wanshu is going to watch the night on the first floor of the bamboo building. In fact, she is not alone. The girl in the pink skirt is sitting by the brazier, and the little lotus girl is lying on her head, reading together. Xianwei had eaten and hurried down the mountain, also reading while watching the night. Xing Dafeng, the former janitor, left a mountain of books, and Xianwei couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The Dafeng brother, who has not yet met, is a role model for our generation. Now that he was here, Hong Xia went to Huanghu Mountain to watch the night with Yunzi in the Shui mansion. On the side of Zhu Lian's yard, there was an old blanket on the deck chair. It's just that Zhu Lian sat on the bamboo chair beside him, took a hand stove, and let Pei Xiang lie down on the wicker chair. Pei Xiang lay down comfortably, with his hands gently stacked, smiling and squinting a pair of Chushui eyes, and asked casually, "Eating New Year's Eve dinner and vigil with others is an unimaginable thing." Zhu Lian smiled and said, "It is an unimaginable thing to wait until the new thing is not new, and it can be as usual." Pei Xiang turned to his side, folded his hands, his cheeks pressed against the back of his hands. "Anyway, there is no one around, show me." Seeing that the guy was not talking and pretending to be deaf, Pei Xiang said to him, "Make sure you don't use your hands and feet, you just have an eye addiction." Zhu Lian did not squint, smiled and said, "Where's whoring me?" Pei Xiang exhaled and stared. "What are you talking about? They'll forget it if you are disgusting. How can there be someone who disgusts yourself so much?" Zhu Lian chuckled. Pei Xiangru said, "Yan Fang, can you tell me a story casually?" Zhu Lian laughed and said, "Come again." Pei Xiang complained, "Can you be more serious?" "Serious? You have to talk about the patriarch's intention to come from the West. For thousands of years, so many Buddhist dragons and elephants have only published a scripture." Zhu Lian thought for a while, and then said, "Pei Xiang, you should know that the first ancestor of Zen in the vast world was actually the 28th ancestor of the Western Buddhist countries. He was ranked according to the preferences of us vulgar sons. With a confused face, it seems that you don't know it. I used to read a novel about gods and monsters in my hometown of Fudi. It is an unknown name. At first glance, it seems to worship the Buddha, but it is actually a derogation to the Buddha. As for looking back now, it's hard to say. It's probably a Middle-earth monk who made a great aspiration to go to the Western Buddhist country to obtain the truth. Later, the first ancestor and second ancestor of Zen made things difficult and gave the Wuzi Jingshu, and the monk used the precious things on his body to exchange for the Truth Sutra. I was a teenager at that time, not familiar with world affairs, and didn't read much. Seeing this, I can't wait to find out that nasty, anonymous, and hit it. I just feel that Lao Tzu has a hard time stubbornly seeing the end of a book. You, the storyteller, will show me this in the end. What? I didn't realize the meaning until I was middle-aged. The monk got the wordless Buddhist scriptures first. Is it true or false? Later, the true scriptures with words are really true. Need to know Zen Buddhism. One line, it's just that there is no writing, so don't teach it to other people. It's just that when I am old and ad again, there will be questions again. Could it be that this monk has already seen through this difficulty at that time, just because he thinks that one person becomes a Buddha, and it is not as good as a multitude to become a Buddha? For ordinary people, it may still need some stages and steps, such as paving roads and bridges. So you see, the future generations of Zen will not have the orthodox struggle for the position of the sixth ancestor, which separates the Nanzong Epiphany and the northern sect gradually realized the two veins. Although it was said that the person was divided into the southern sect and the northern sect, the law was not divided into the southern sect and the northern sect. Locally, there is a 1,000-year-old temple at the foot of Nanping Mountain, and the plaque has the 4 characters, with equality, which is great. Pei Xiang listened intently. Zhu Lian smiled and said, everything that works is like a dreamy bubble, like a dew or electricity, you should observe it like this. Pei Xiang smiled and said, I still know this sentence. Zhu Lian shook his head and said, we have only heard of it, but we don't really know. Pei Xiang smiled and said, you have the final say. Zhu Lian held the stove, I will test you with a puzzle. What kind of flower grows under the ground? Pei Xiang mistakenly thought it was the mysterious problem of attacking the front, shook his head, lest he laughed generously. Zhu Lian smiled and said, it's peanuts. Pei Xiang was speechless for a while. Zhu Lian laughed and said, our millet grains are still amazing. There is one of the beautiful things in the world, but the least pleasing to the eyes. Guess what is it? Zhu Lian asked and replied, sleep and get back to sleep. After a ferry crossing the continent, it was like a new small hill appeared, Zhou Mili, Chai Wu, Bai Xian, Sun Chun Wang, and they were already very familiar with each other. In Bai Xian's words, it is Sun Chun Wang, a dead fish-eyed girl, only when we reach the right guardian side, will she have a smiling face that is more ugly than crying. On the side of Luopa Mountain, he secretly sealed himself a mountain patrol officer's millet grains, and patrolled the mountain twice in the morning and evening, but he couldn't move it. When you arrive at the Mishua peak of Xiande Mountain, the millet will go to Fengyuan Ferry, or go out twice in the morning and evening, but it is slightly different from Luopa Mountain. In Luopa Mountain, after patrolling the mountain, go to Pei Qian and Wanshu's sister. They are playing stubbornly on the side of Xiande Mountain, but on the other side of the ferry, spinning around the wind and kite ferry. A little girl in black, carrying a cotton bag crossbody, carrying a golden pole on her shoulder, holding a green bamboo stick, and not boarding the ferry, she just had fun near the ferry, eating melon seeds, piling stones, skipping grids, and going down the mountain early in the morning every day. At noon, I went back to the mountain for a meal, and after the meal, I went down the mountain quickly. Bai Xian often walked down Mishua Peak with Xiaomili, wandering around the ferry, but did not delay complaining. Mi Dajiangxian is retreating on his own site. What are you worried about? Don't talk about the big white goose. And Pei Qian, just as a guest here, there are those of Taishu Mountain in Middle Earth, Yi Yunyun of Yunkatang in Pushan, and Huangting of Taiping Mountain. They are one by one, which one can't fight? Who dares come to our Xiandu Mountain and disturb Mi Dajiangxian's retreat? Those who are celebrating the new year, come here to beg for a fight, right? Millet just grinned and didn't explain anything. Later, Bai Xian talked a lot, and the millet grains were still not annoying at all, but with a flash of inspiration, he said to Bai Xian, "It's easy to do good things, but it's not a good thing." At that time, Bai Xian hugged the back of his head with his hands, and walked on the mountain road with a big surprise. The millet cracked loudly. Sister Wanshu said it, borrowed it and used it. Bai Xian couldn't help asking again, "Since I am in a hurry and want to go to the ferry, why don't you even go up and down the mountain?" Millet's footsteps are brisk, her shoulders swayed. "Of course I know. My little head is so brilliant." Miyu nodded and said, "That's it." Millet hesitated for a while, and said softly, "But being liked is a very rare thing that needs to be cherished. Alas, it's harder than not being hated, so it's not something that can be shown off. It should be just a happy thing hidden in the heart, and then occasionally when you are in a bad mood, when you open the door, you will be happy, and when you open the door, you will be in a good mood, so it's called happy." After holding his hands, Miyu squinted his eyes. "This truth, I don't think the hidden officer can tell." Xiaomili smiled and said, "Pei Qian always said that I am a sycophant, Mi Dajiangxian, what do you learn from me?" Of course Miyu knows that the millet grains must have been waiting outside these days. "I hope Miyu will be able to open the door. I saw someone waiting for myself." It is rare to see in the mountains under the awe-inspiring world. In the hometown where Jian Xiu died, there were no graves, even more so. And Millet is an exception. She is not waiting for a broken sword fairy. She was just waiting for you, Mi. It was that simple. Mi's eyes were gentle. He squatted down, and said softly, "Xiaomili, thank you." Xiaomili grinned, "Thank me for what I did." Mi Dajian was so polite that I almost made me angry. The little girl in black scrambled her face and shook her head. "When I get angry, it can be fierce. Good people and mountain owners must be afraid." Xiaomili said in a low voice, "Yumi, in fact, I also want to thank you." "Why?" "If I say it, remember to keep it secret." "Yeah. Make sure not to talk about it on the hidden officer's side. I used to be a door for Pei Qian at home. Alas, every time Pei Qian sees me, she won't be as happy as you." Speaking of this, Xiaomili hurriedly raised his head. "Don't misunderstand, I am not saying that the money is not good. The money is very good, it is good in every way. If I treat the money well, I will say one by one. Come out, I'm really not bragging. I can walk all the way to Mixufeng's house. I can't finish talking, it's just a small thing the size of a fingernail. There is no more than a meter as good as you. Everyone in the future you have to follow me and call you Mi Dajiangxian." Miyu was speechless. His mother, even Miyu, aslumber among the flowers, wanted to settle down at this moment, and quickly find a good girl, married a family wife, and gave birth to a baby girl like millet grains. Mi Xiafeng, a house. The boy in white sits on the railing, like a white cloud that stops. Under the eaves of the tall building, a large string of wooden signs, such as hanging wind chimes, were filled with the names of words, and the wooden signs were lightly bumped when the wind blew them. There is that autumn eyebrows, earning evil, the mountains are turning green, the water dragons are singing, the eyes are charming, the more leaky, the water is tuned, the divination is slow, the age is long, the flowers and snow are all over the mountains, the lotus leaves are covering the water, the spring is from the sky coming up, dreaming, the storm is set, Good things are coming. A Xianjia ferry belonging to the imperial family of Mengliang Kingdom slowly lifted off. Huangliang's sect had a private Xianjia ferry in the history, which is the predecessor of the Xianqiong ferry on Yunxia Mountain today. Before Yunxia Mountain changed the name of the ferry, in fact, the ferry is called Tukadu. With the decline of the Huangliang school of incense, first the Tukadu was gradually abandoned because it was unable to make ends meet. Later, it was leased to Yunxia Mountain. Later, it was simply bought by Yunxia Mountain. It is an idiotic dream to want to buy back the ferry crossing from Yunxia Mountain now, so the Huangliang faction has always wanted to open a new ferry crossing, but it is too difficult. It is very likely that there are two huge Xianjia ferry crossings at the same time, and it is easy for Yunxia Mountain and Huangliang School to have a series of mountain disputes. Therefore, His Majesty the Emperor was also very embarrassed before. The palms and backs of the hands were all fleshy. After all, he couldn't be too eccentric to the Huangliang school. Besides, Yunxia Mountain was still a hilltop of the sect candidate, just like the embarrassment before the head of the sect. Can be bright but pretend to be stupid. But before going down the mountain today, the young emperor was not at all embarrassed. He promised that he would allocate a part of Jitian outside the capital to the Huangliang sect to build a Xianjia ferry in the name of rental. For example, the ritual system of Liwen temples has to be prescriptive and exquisite only in terms of direction. It must be located in the seismic position of the capital. As for the size of the Jitian, as long as it guarantees 1,000 acres, it will have a certain degree of flexibility. However, Gaozhen did not agree to the matter, saying that this was too arousing jealousy, and said with a smile, if the old palm of Yunxia Mountain in the mountain knew the law of the old man who came to observe the ceremony, he would not just throw his sleeves and leave. Therefore, sitting back is only asking for a piece of land with good aura to be opened as a ferry in the Xia boundary of Lord Maishan. Inside a house on the ferry, the decoration was simple, and the young emperor began to read the memorials, occasionally laughing and cursing. Naylan Yuji teased, if the head of the high school is in the officialdom, how can he be a six-book? Mei Shanjun stared at her, Your Majesty is dealing with official duties, what are you doing? Huang Tsong put down the pen, rubbed his wrist, glanced at the memorial hill that had been processed, then glanced at the pile of mountains on the side, and shook his head helplessly. It was not only mental work, but also physical work. Naylan Yuji smiled and asked, Your Majesty, what do you think when you see the hidden official? Huang Tsong smiled and said, It feels more contradictory. Mr. Chen is sitting in distress. When talking to people seriously, he will feel that the summer heat is unavoidable. But when Mr. Chen is chatting with people, like a spring breeze, he will feel relaxed and comfortable. Naylan Yuji said, I only have one perception. Huang Tsong curiously said, Talk about it. Naylan Yuji said, Young hidden official, seems a little afraid of me. Mr. Maishan said in a bad temper, You can't say it because of you. Huang Tsong laughed loudly and said, I'm on Maishan Jun's side for this matter. Mr. Chen is called a righteous person to drive Fendai. Jun Meishan said with a stern look, Your Majesty, do you need to ask the inspection department of the criminal department to investigate the roots and feet of Lu Fu? I think this guy is acting too absurdly, unlike. When Naylan Yuji saw that Mr. Maishan was brewing his words, he said, I don't look like a serious person. Jun Maishan nodded and said, But he doesn't look like a bad person. After all, he followed Chen Yingguan to climb the mountain and watch the salute. Huang Tsong shook his head, leaned on the back of the chair, stretched his arms, that is, Jun Mei is here. If only the water empress of the Mochizuki River was present, the young emperor could not wait to raise his feet, put them on the table, and wave his hands. There is no need for extra branches, it's just a passerby on the mountain, and it's hard to meet again if you pass by. Naylan Yuji couldn't help but smile and said, Why does Chen Jianxian have such a nonchalant friend? Interesting is really interesting, dare to say anything, bragging is not costly. Huang Zong thought for a while, I always feel that they don't look like friends, it's just a feeling anyway. The young emperor was suddenly annoyed. I knew that I was in Lushan, so I should have asked Mr. Qin to help me write down the book samples in the auspicious language for the opening of the spring of Mengliang country this year. The monarchs of all countries in the world have the custom of welcoming the new year, and the emperor needs to stay up for the world. Halfway through the age, when the new year comes, there will be the with the eunuch's palm seal holding a white jade candle to illuminate the emperor, and the will hand a royal pen to the eunuch. In the auspicious words of New Year, Vientian Renewal, Haiyan Hiqing, Shihan Yanfeng, and Spring Festival Happy, posting these auspicious notes in several important halls of the inner court is called opening the pen. The emperor symbolically scanned the New Year's calendar compiled by Qin Tianjian, which means that the monarch of a country has provided time and saved years for the common people of a country. Later, the words blessing, longevity, and spring will be written again to bestow courtiers. This is also an important reason why Huang Zong left Lushan in a hurry. Nailan Yuji smiled and said, "It doesn't take long to leave Lushan. You can turn the bow of the ship." Huang Zong was obviously moved. Is this not suitable? Jun Maishan noticed the emperor's sight, and said helplessly, "Your Majesty sees what I do." Huang Zong smiled and said, "I still have a feeling, the three of us, it's just that you are the closest to Mr. Qin." It's rare for Maishan Jun to smile all over his face. Huang Zong turned his head and looked at the goddess of water. Well, my flattering skill, is it perfect for me? Nailan Yuji covered her mouth and smiled. Your Majesty is the 9th 5-year-old, why bother to please a mountain monarch? Huang Zong nodded. Widows really need top lease, only the people of one country. Outside the window of the house, someone was lying on the window sill with his hands and probed his head inside. A familiar face was just a crown on his head. The fishtail crown was replaced with a lotus crown. The young Taoist priest raised a hand, holding a rolled paper, and said with a smile, "Don't make an order to chase away guests, the poor road is here to make the emperor's wish come true." He writes auspicious words, it's written on it, although it's not Qin Shanzhe's autograph, but you don't know that Qin Shanzhe's words are all learned from the poor Tao, do you think it's not like it? Your Majesty, you can think of it as Qin Shanzhu the real thing. Mr. Maishan was about to shout angrily, reprimanding this completely unruly Taoist priest. Nailan Yuji found it more interesting. But the young emperor had already stood up, bowed his head towards the window and clasped his fists. Mengliang country Huang Zong, pay homage to Master Lu. Lu Qin leaned on the window sill, tilted his head, huh? So smart. Just say it. He has good ears and eyes. He understands everything and can see everything. The name is so good. Fortunately, Mr. Maishan said, still calm, but Nailan Yuzi's face was pale and colorless. I saw the Lu Zhangjiao, a harrier turned over and fell to the ground, spreading the rolled paper on the table. The 16 characters written on the paper is really a good auspicious sentence. The weather is smooth, the grains are abundant, the world is peaceful, the country is peaceful and the people are peaceful. Lu Qin left the house with the young emperor and walked to the bow. Huang Zong asked, "What is the command of Master Lu?" Lu Qin asked with a smile, "What if the poor Tao wants you to deal with Qin Pingan? Regardless of success or failure, I will give you a splendid wealth, how about it?" Huang Zong just shook his head. Lu Qin asked again, "Then if poor Tao changed its terms, could the people living in this dream of Liangguo live and work in peace and contentment for hundreds of years?" Huang Zong still shook his head. Lu Qin smiled and said, "Don't be so nervous," Pang Dao just said casually. Huang Zong's body is still tight, unconsciously, already sweating. Lu Qin said, "When you look back to Chao Rong, you say that Master Lu Qin has ordered him to take care of Mengliang country. Let's take 300 years as the deadline. Huang Tsong wanted to speak but stopped. Lu Qin moved his sleeves with both hands, and said indifferently, "You just do it." Huang Tsong nodded, clasped his fist and said, "Thanks to Zhang Jiaolu for the decree." Lu Qin stretched out his sleeves and leaned on the railing. The young man smiled and went out, and the wind fell for thousands of miles. Now the blue shirt is back with his sword, and the mountains and rivers are full of spring breeze. I don't know what the prime of life and the old age are. With the world as a cage, the bird has nowhere to escape. In the world, the young man thinks the most innocent. The beauty gave me the wrong knife. Jinchi Great Wall Jinchi is near. Going into the depths of the lotus root by mistake, observe Taoism, Taoism and Taoism. Drawing the ground by myself is a prison, and I have been dealing with me for a long time. The distant tourists looked up and saw the moon in their hearts. Learning is the hardest to sail at night, to travel in the opposite direction of life, and to travel at night with candles. The sword repairs the lack of ground, and the heavenly man chooses the official. Looking at the lives of others is like turning a book, so what about the next book? Lu Qin took out a pot of wine, uncovered the mud seal, took a sip of the fermented ferment, looked up at Tongisao to the south, then glanced at a place in Aquarius Island, and said to himself, "Fuxing Yiming is with me, I will also go to Jiuhong. I'm gone." Finally, Lu Qin glanced again at the central part of Tongisao in the south. His figure turned into a rainbow and went to the sky. The third head teacher of Baiyujing, without the Confucian accompaniment, broke through the vast world. The sky curtain, go directly to Baiyujing under the Qingming world, and then at the highest point, I looked around, flicked my eyes, and saw where the 14th level monks were located in the dojo or the current figure, whether it is hidden or open. Lu Qin with a panoramic view, he stretched his waist and murmured, "I have advanced for 500 years of new ideas, and after the millennium, I will feel new." It's a good idea to introduce new ideas. Sort of coming. Chapter 949. Li Er took his wife and daughter and followed his son-in-law Han Qingjiang to the Hualing dynasty in the north of Luzhou, Beiju. This is the first time the two families have been married to visit relatives. The woman drove down the carriage, and in the place called Xiaoxixiang, which was wider than the main street, when she saw the son-in-law's mansion, she began to feel uneasy before crossing the high threshold. "I don't know where to put both hands." The son-in-law said earlier about the origin of this Xiaoxixiang, what the arbor is high, and Zimu is jinxed. There are some truths the woman can't understand, so she didn't care too much, just waited for her to hear about it. The whole alley belongs to their Han family, and according to the Han family's ancestral precepts, there is no score. This makes the woman stunned, and the son-in-law's family is too rich. With such a long alley, their surname is Han. It's not a small sum of money just for a year's meal, right? Just talking about a golden plaque as big as the door, plus the two white jade lions squatting taller than a human, already gave the woman a sturdy horsepower. When she entered the house, he would bend around. Turning her dizzy, she didn't have any chicken dung or shit, she didn't dare to spit. The woman quickly photographed it, and the old man and wife are not ashamed. If they are seen by the scholars here, by the way, we look down on Huizi, what should we do? The woman had to pinch her arm lightly, it hurts, not a dream. Before, I took my daughter and son-in-law together and went back to my hometown. It was also a relative's house. Women dared to abandon the chef's poor skills. Now at my son-in-law's house, I really don't dare to take a breath. In fact, the woman had long known that her son-in-law came from a very good background. But how can a woman imagine that the threshold of a son-in-law's house will be so high, something that she would not even dare to dream of? Now my daughter is married, she is still the same and bored. Li Lu had such a temper when she was a child. She was not big and could not help her. Her temper followed her dad, so she would follow her daughter's appearance and body shape. The old girl who went out. It's his own man, who usually can't see it. He can't make a silly fart with a few sticks. He never thought about the critical moment. He was quite able to survive the scene. He wouldn't be upset when he saw anyone, and he wouldn't say much. He was stern and nodded. Indeed, more calm than myself. This made the woman feel a little at ease, but she couldn't help but remind the man softly, "Lee Air, just like this, don't talk, anyway, don't embarrass Wisey, or I will be anxious with you and hit the floor at night." Lee Air grinned and nodded. The woman quickly glared her eyes. Han Qingjiang hurriedly smiled and said, "Mother-in-law, don't be so cautious, just be your own home." In fact, the mother-in-law was nervous, and Han Qingjiang was even more nervous, just not showing it on his face. He was afraid that the red tape in the family would make his wife's family of 3 uncomfortable. So on the way back to his hometown, Han Qingjiang sent 2 letters back to Kaizixiang, Jiangxian County, reminding the family that etiquette is indispensable, and at the same time try not to mobilize people. If it weren't for the grandfather to reply to a letter personally, let his grandson rest assured, otherwise Han Qingjiang could write another one. The woman's voice is like a mosquito, and she cautiously said, "Qingjiang, I heard that you are the eldest son and the eldest grandson, and you have a big family. There must be many rules. Our family is different. I'm afraid of embarrassing you. In my hometown of Huaihuang County and the small town at the foot of Shizifeng Mountain, if there are a little more people in the family, they will fight for it. The Han family is such a big family, can't break the head." After spending a few days in the Han mansion, his son Li Huai was a sage at the Sui Mountain Cliff Academy. This was the best thing for the woman. When I got here, I realized that the son-in-law's house, the vice president of the academy, and the gentleman and wise man couldn't count them. The woman really couldn't stay, and was not used to living. She was afraid of making jokes and making a fool of herself. At that family banquet, she had a meal and a dish without knowing where to put her chopsticks. Fortunately, the grandfather of Han Qingjiang, the old man Han, was very angry. He used to be an official in the capital. When he was old, he returned to his hometown. At the banquet, there was no such thing as an official. An illusion. Could it be that your Qiao Zixiang Han family owes money to our family? I heard that Han Chengjiang's parents are now on their way to Jiangxian County, because Han Chengjiang's father is also a capital official, and he needs to take leave from the court when he returns home. Han Chengjiang's father was the first assistant of the Hualing dynasty. And this old man Han happened to be the first assistant, who had been the ruler of a country for nearly 40 years, and was a well-deserved leader of the ministers. The officials and the Ministry of War of the Hualing dynasty have always been either surnamed Han or protégé of the Han family. The woman thought that she had met her relatives, so she went to the small shop at the foot of Lion Peak earlier, and was more comfortable over there. She could hear croaking and speak louder, "No one cares." Unlike here, the maids and servants who walk silently don't make any noises. Those big kids who see them in the house will also learn from the master one by one. About this, it's called knowledge and wisdom. Looking at his grandson and granddaughter-in-law, the old man smiled kindly and was very pleased. Han Qingjiang is actually a chi practitioner from the lower 5 realms. He was on the path of cultivation by accident. He was not interested in this. He had been fishing for 3 days and drying the net for 2 days, and he had never been interested in the so-called preaching longevity. Old man Han looked kind, looked at the woman who looked weak, and asked with a smile, "Are you still used to living?" Li Lu smiled and said, "I'm okay, but my mother is not used to it." Old man Han nodded and smiled, "It's okay." Outside the county seat, the Han family still has a mountain and forest industry. Turn around and let Qingjiang take you to live there. It's no different from the countryside. Li Lu thanked him. As the head of the martial arts Han family, Mr. Han's news is of course very well informed. Furthermore, Li Er and Lion Peak didn't know how to hide, so they knew the whole family. Shizifeng Li Er is a martial artist of the end. In fact, he is not a native of Luzhou in Beiju, but from the Lizhu cave of Aquarius Island. It's just that the immortal masters on the Luzhou mountain in Beiju today don't know much about this. I heard that the old man Wang Fushuan had been to the foot of Lion Peak Mountain and suffered a beating on Li Er's side. After that, he went to the Confucian temple to discuss Yuanyang's side. At the end of the Confucian temple, the martial arts gathered together for fishing. Wang Fushuan seemed to have told others. Li Er's boxing method is actually average and not heavy. The Hualing dynasty in Baijiluzu is similar to the Yuan-Lu dynasty in the central part. It is one of the few big countries with prosperous national power. It is also one of the few dynasties under the mountain that can manage the fairy houses on the mountain. You must know that this is in the north. Jiluzu, and this family ancestral hall is located in the Wujing Han family in Jiangxian County, Zhua County. In the Hualing dynasty, there has always been the nickname Tai Shangwang. In history, there are more than 100 people who have the posthumous title of Wu and Wu. People, the sages of the Han family who share the Taimyo temple, the number is considerable. However, as the eldest grandson of the Han family, Han Qingjiang has not been confused for a few years, but he still has nothing to do in the temple. As an official, he has only become a ceremonial doctor, and then he has edited his book for 5 or 6 years. He resigned altogether a few years ago. Before the Hualing dynasty began to compile a large tome, the Bachelor of the Hanlin Academy, who served as the chief president, recommended Han Qingjiang, the chief editor of the ritual department, as the chief editor. Father Han asked, "What are you doing now?" Over the years, Han Qingjiang has been traveling abroad, and the number of times his grandfather and grandson have met is very few. Han Qingjiang, who was sitting in danger, replied respectfully, 2 books are being compiled, and they are temporarily titled Baijia Zikao and Jianyan Lianbi. Han Qingjiang reads very complicatedly. He sorted out the prefaces, postscripts, edicts, and memorials of the biographies and memorials in the process of reading. Whenever encountering aphorisms from the sages, regardless of the past or the present, they can be memorized at will. Han Qingjiang extrapolates these sentences separately, and divides them into 10 categories, such as scholarship, preservation, life, and literary algae, which are clearly divided and compiled into a book. Old man Han nodded with a smile. It's similar to the Guan Guanji, selected by Wu and Wu, and the Drunken Ancient Hall Sword Sweep, by Lu Xiangke. Han Qingjiang said, "It's just picking up people's teeth." Old man Han waved his hand and said, "The 2 books are well done, and they are also a treasure to become one's own, a stairway to the hope of sage and Shishin. Turn around and show me the draft and help you check it. If the book can be engraved in the future, just remember to use a pseudonym." Han Qingjiang agreed. The old man suddenly smiled and said, "Li Lu, Qingjiang is well written, the Spring Festival couplets at the ancestral house in Huaiwang County." The calligraphy of the grandson Han Qingjiang is indeed extremely skillful, and it is very popular with today's sons. Therefore, every time the Hualing dynasty has an imperial stele, Han Qingjiang will inevitably let Han Qingjiang write with his pen. Before he became the editor-in-chief, even the name of the emperor's study, they are all made by Han Qingjiang. Han Qingjiang is recognized as a young prodigy. At the age of a weak crown, he was admitted to the top 2. It is rumored that this is the reason that Han Shou supplemented the reason that the sons of officials should not be the first in the world ranking. Therefore, when Han Shoufu returned to his hometown to worship his ancestors, he especially needed to see his relatives. His Majesty gave a jade rui, which means everything is going well in this trip to Beijing. In addition, he also gave more than 100 books in the inner palace. Of course it was specifically for Han Qingjiang. Li Lu smiled and said, "The spring couplets and the word fu were all written by my brother. Words are boundless, and go straight back and forth." Old man Han was dumb when he heard the words. Han Qingjiang held back a smile when he saw the unusual expression on his grandfather's face. Li Lu glanced at the plaque in the study room, ashamed. The phrase taken from Yaxing, "Look up to the sky, don't bow to others," and it can be regarded as a kind of echo with the Qiaozi alley at the door. A pair of couplets hung on the wall with iron paintings and silver hooks. The wind comes to rise above the sea, and there is dragon energy in the scabbard. The cloud embraces the mountain, and everything outside the wine glass is feathered. Han Qingjiang laughed softly. Grandpa actually doesn't like drinking, he just likes this couplet. When his grandfather was young, he was a famous Confucian general. So Han Lao Shofu later had a strange remark in officialdom. "My friends are mostly young people you don't know." The old man said with emotion, "The Lion Peak is a good place for practice. I only visited once when I was young. This kind of world-famous mountain dojo has been around for a long time. People hope the sage and the virtuous ambition, and the self-interested heart. Lion Peak Mountain Master, a well-known old monk Yuaning, has a close relationship with Yufu Academy as the head of the mountain, and is a close friend." The old man suddenly asked a question that outsiders would find extremely unbelievable. "Could you ask, how do you like Xinjiang?" Li Lu said straightforwardly, "It belongs to the mountain. It has both old grievances and destiny, so I have to make a refreshing break in this life." She married Han Qingjiang and had a wedding in the small town at the foot of the Lion Peak. No one showed up on the Han side. Han Qingjiang and Wu Jinghan are also good at talking. Han Qingjiang's two previous lives, in the Middle-earth Shenzhou and Lixiaozu, have had a lot of intersection with Li Lu, who is known for his reincarnation and reincarnation. At the beginning, old man Yang asked Li Er's family of 3 to leave the town and move to Luzhou in Beiju. Han Qingjiang, who was out for a trip, happened to meet Li Lu and went to Lion Peak together. It's like a destiny. Li Lu knew it well. It was the old man Yang who entrusted Kai Dao Huang with the handwriting, opened the marriage book in the engagement shop, wrote the name, and led the red line. In exchange, old man Yang gave Hu Feng a chance to go up the mountain to practice cultivation. However, the golden cicada that hides a cave in the sky is just the little brother Li Huai doing it casually. Old man Han was speechless, hesitated for a moment, or asked, "Li Lu, your current realm?" Li Lu said, "Fairyland." Father Han glanced at Han Qingjiang, and seemed to have heard about it for the first time, but he had an indifferent look on his face. Previously, Han Qingjiang accompanied Li Lu, who returned to his hometown and provincial relatives. In Huaihuan County, he did the job of picking water and cutting firewood. He could also eat coarse tea and light rice, but he was so scared by his friend Lu Xianying that he deliberately brought Lin Shi together. Dong Shuijing is said to be the demon king who likes to put on sacks and sap when he was a child. Participated in the celebration ceremony for the establishment of the sect of Luopa Mountain, and had a drink with the master Chen Shan who took the initiative to go down the mountain to visit. The amount of alcohol is too good to drink. Old man Han was silent for a long time, stretched out his sleeves, raised his hands, and asked softly, "Is there any hope to take it to the next level?" Li Lu nodded and said, "At most 100 years, it is inevitable things." Father Han was silent again. Now, there seems to be only one monk in the Ascension realm in Luzhou in the north. The real fire dragon lying on the top of the earth. The old man smiled and said, "There are not many people who have made the merits of the world and will end the night and the name behind them. Li Lu, Qingjiang will leave it to you in the future." The matter of high power and vibrating master has always been a dangerous pass that the ancients couldn't go around on the way to worship the priest. Li Lu nodded and said, "No problem." The old man asked curiously, "I heard that the official Qin Yin was also born in Lizhu Dongtian. It seems that he is still very young now. How old is he?" Li Lu said, "A little bit in the early 40s. The old man hesitated and asked, "Could you ask about Qin Yingwen's realm?" According to the previous statement, as one of the 10 young people in the world, Qin Shi of the Great Wall of Sword Qi is a sword repairman in the Yupu realm and a martial artist in the Mountain realm. Li Lu thought for a while, shook his head and said, "It's hard to tell." Bookstore in the alley in Hongzhou town. A dull man with a short stature came, looking at the black-clothed young man who was lazily lying on a wicker chair, and said, "Come to buy a book." Li Jin, the water of the Chongtan River, immediately sat up and said with a smile, "It's rare to find a rare visitor." At the beginning, this guy in front of him, the lion, opened his mouth, and directly asked Dolly for the location of a state city god. If he was only given the title of the county city god, he would continue to stay in the Manta Mountain Earth Temple and would not move his nest. The promotion of Shanshui officialdom is more difficult than the imperial court. However, the Dolly court really agreed to this matter. Once upon a time, a young man who was only 20 years old helped the founding emperor of the Shanshui kingdom. It took less than 10 years to lay down nearly half of the vast territory of the country. Almost unified the boundaries of the ancient Shu territory in history. At that time, the Shanshui kingdom had a vast territory, encompassing the Sui dynasty and Huang Tinghua, and even the sovereign state of the Song dynasty in the past. It is located at the northernmost tip of Aquarius Island. The dynasty, also part of the territory, belongs to the border states and counties of the Shanshui country. A generation of famous generals, founding heroes. When he retired, he seemed to be less than 40 years old. It's just that this person's name is not unusual at all, Zhang Ping. Now there are several Zhang Ping in Hongzhou town. The first night banquet in the Piyun mountain of Deibeiwe, the only landscape in the jurisdiction that did not appear was the little landlord of Manta Mountain. The outside speculation is that the rank is too low and has not been invited, but in fact, the first batch of invitations from Shanjin's mansion, and it was Wei Bo's handwritten handwriting, is this Zhang Ping. And Wei Bo was the Dayue mountain monarch of Shanshui country. It's just that at that time, Shanshui nation continued to split its territory, and its territory shrank drastically. After the establishment of the Song family of Dolly, the remnants of Wei Bo, the remnants of the country's subjugation, were demoted and demoted again and again, directly from a great dynasty Wuyue mountain lord, and eventually reduced to the land of Kaitanshan. Jin Qing, the mountain monarch of the old Zhuiying dynasty, was in a completely different situation. It is no wonder that the two Dayue mountain monarchs were notoriously unpleasant. The Zhou Cheng Huangyi asked, "Are there any military books?" Li Jin pointed to a bookshelf, "It's all over there." Zhang Ping walked to the bookshelf, glanced a few times, and pulled out a well-engraved biography of the 27 history and 100 generals, which meant that the famous general of the Middle-earth Shenzhou dynasty. The man turned a few pages and put it back. Took out a new copy, as if found the biographies of a famous general who wanted to browse, put the book in his sleeve, turned around and asked, "How much?" Li Jin smiled and said, "I made an exception and didn't charge money. I'll give it to you." Zhang Ping didn't mean to be polite, and turned around to leave. Li Jin beckoned, "Let's talk a little longer. If I remember correctly, is this your first time to the bookstore?" Zhang Ping stopped and asked, "What's the matter?" Before this bookstore in Hongzhou town, the landscape and weather were not small, and even the Zhouqing city god temple had noticed the vision here. Li Jin smiled and said, "The former butler of Luopa Mountain gave me 2 paintings. Chen Shanzhu came here not long ago to help paint gold and seal a private seal." Zhang Ping nodded and said, "Congratulations. Achievement retreats, the way of heaven is also." Li Jin shook his head and said with a smile, "You are a soldier of the military, but you are like a Taoist practitioner. Just like the biography of the famous general, one of them is the killer who Zhang Ping highly respected, whose surname is Bai. Haoran martial arts temples all over the world were built in accordance with the Confucian temple etiquette system. At the county level, only the hanging statues of the 10 philosophers in the martial temple are hung, and the state-level martial arts temples, if the financial resources are insufficient, hang the statues, and those with the financial resources will create the statues of the 10 people in the martial arts hall. The result was no better than that of the door. I was so crowded that I couldn't get in. The little guy stood up, his eyes were dull, his chest was beaten, and he sat on the ground, howling, and his life was bitter. If it doesn't work, I went to the mountain and looked for a warm tree. She will definitely watch the night today, and it's on the first floor of the bamboo building. The only problem is that I don't know if my 2 thin calves can keep up with the hour. With a squeak, Xianwei rolled up a book in his hand, opened the door, squatted on the ground, and said with a smile, "Finally I know that I will call the Daoist Xianwei. Let's go." Touch the door in the middle of the night. What do you want to do? The little guy straightened his waist, hands on his hips, raised his head high, and said angrily, "What are you doing? What else can it be? Uncle, come here and click on it on time." Damn it, at the Qinghuang Temple, there is a bunch of bureaucrats who come to my house to ask for dinner. Don't you know that Zhang Ping is an unreliable lord, a trash who doesn't understand the world at all, so I can't help. Waiting for guests, I drank high accidentally, and then went to Manta Mountain. This road is so easy to run, I almost exhausted my uncle. Only then did Xianwei remember, this incense villain, it seems that today he really needs to come to Luopashan to tap Mao. Really regard Luopa Mountain as a yamen. But the little guy is sincere. Xianwei turned and walked into the house. The little guy rushed, jumped to the edge of the fire, and squatted over the fire to keep warm. To the Zhuyi boy, the brazier was like a small volcano. The little guy complained, "Where are the rice dumplings, the taro sticks, and there are no farts, Xianwei, it's really not I who said you, why are you so shabby, you were deducted by the old chef." Xianwei turned a deaf ear to it and took out a booklet from the desk drawer. The small rice grains were left here, the size of a palm, and each page was dated. Let the incense villain draw a circle every time, even if he clicked on it that day. Zhu Yitong gave orders and said, "Hurry up, what are you doing there? Your pen and ink is waiting, just your savvy and eye power, if you are in officialdom, eat your fart." Xianwei gave the little guy a white look, bent over to pick up a piece of charcoal from the brazier, and threw it on the edge of the brazier. The little guy had to take out a small grain of charcoal as a pen, with a serious look, and after drawing a circle on the top of the booklet, he felt relieved. Xianwei threw the pamphlet back to the table, and ended up being scolded again, just getting used to it. Xianwei sat on the small bamboo chair and curiously said, "I haven't asked, every half a month, if you click on it on time, what is the picture?" The little guy was born in the Zhou Qinghuang Temple. The Qinghuang Yi has a high level of official status in the Shanshui officialdom. Zhang Ping, as the head of a Zhou Qinghuang, is in charge of all the Qinghuang temples at the county and county levels, as well as the land gods and land wives. The boy in Zhu Yi in front of him, the incense villain, looked at the young Taoist priest with a look of idiots. "As long as the number of clicks is enough, I can proceed step by step, level by level, level by level. How can a manly man stay depressed for a long time?" Something went wrong, probably because fate hasn't arrived yet. So far I haven't been able to see the Lord Qin Shan. According to Lord Pei Ruo, click on the mountain gate 100 times. If you see the Lord again in the future, you can greet the Lord. NS. Xianwei couldn't laugh or cry, promoted. How old? The little guy was stunned, scratching his face, and his voice immediately went down. Anyway, Lord Pei Ruo and Master Protector Zhou, we all have a spectrum in our hearts. I don't know, I never ask about it, it seems insincere. In that year, replacing Zhou Mili, Zhu Yitong took over as the right guardian of Qilong Lane. And in private, listening to the meaning of our guardian Zhou, Pei Qian may set up the general guardian of Qilong Lane in the future, and he is duty-bound. Such a heavy burden, I picked it. In the past few years, their secret hilltop has only held a meeting in the Patriarch Hall. This martial arts convention was magnificent and grand. It was on the square outside the Patriarch Hall of the Pao Mountain Jiasfeng. There was a table, 4 benches, and the table was full of melon and fruit snacks. The chief rudder of Longquan County is now terribly expanding. He already has 2 sub-rudders under his jurisdiction. Donghua Mountain has 1 rudder, and Riding Longxiang has a separate rudder. And that piece of General Rudder Leader token was handed over to Pei Qian by Li Baoping, who was the former Wulin leader and General Rudder Leader. Pei Qian is now the master of the sub-rudder in Donghua Mountain, and the master of the sub-rudder in Qilong Lane. After Zhou Mili stepped down as the right guardian of Qilong Lane, he was promoted as the deputy rudder of Qilong Lane and became a high-ranking official. As for the sub-rudder worship, there are Chen Wanshu and Chen Lingjun. There is another school Xiaoruo under Donghuashan sub-rudder. The owner of Xiaoruo, Li Huai, is in charge of 2 Xiaoruo. They are Lu Guan and Ma Lian from Shanaya Academy's classmates with Li Huai. In the martial arts conference that participated in the Grand Martial Arts Conference that year, the Qinghuang Temple incense villain who had no credit but worked hard, because he was promoted to the right guardian of Kolongxiang, he was allowed to sit on the table and discuss matters by the sub-rudder master Pei Qian. That time, Li Baoping, the chief rudder, and the honorary rudder of Kolongxiang's sub-rudder, Dabai Go Chui Dongshan, were absent from the meeting. As a result, the big white goose was killed by the Guijue, and the master Pei Ruo, who was not recognized by the 6 relatives, recorded a big pass on the spot. As for the left guardian of Qilong Lane, but it was too mixed, and he could only lie under the bench beside the table. Zhu Yitong said, "Come on to eat some melon seeds." Xianwei peeled off a melon seed and placed it on the edge of the brazier. Zhu Yitong nodded his head in appreciation and said, "Xianwei, let me tell you a heart-to-heart talk. One day I will be promoted, I will recommend it with Lord Pei Ruo and Zhou Hufa. You belong to the position." Xianwei smiled and said, "Should I thank you, or should I thank you?" Shanjun Jinqing secretly left Shanjun's mansion, took a trip to Huangshan Sword Sect, and found Jian Xiu Yuanbai. Yuanbai joked, "Don't you want me to be the slave of the 3 surnames?" Jinqing said, "I think you should think about it carefully." Yuanbai hesitated for a moment, or shook his head. "No matter who the first mountain lord of the Huangzhou Sword Sect is, no matter whether or not I can join the sect in the future, I still hope to stay here. The next sect of Luopa Mountain, Qingping Sword Sect of Xianda Mountain, will be the first sword sect in Tonggishao." Jin Qing continued to persuade, "Chen Pingan values you very much. You are not in the realm of Kendo, nor your identity. It is just a sympathy between sword repairs." Seeing Yuanbai smiling and not speaking, Jin Qing said, "Don't get me wrong. I think you can help me when you get there. I just think that when you go there, it's better than staying with this misty Huangshan sword. Pai, more comfortable." In fact, in accordance with the agreement with the young hermit, Jin Qing should have confirmed the restoration of the Duga clan on the Rin River in the middle of Tonggishao before coming here to persuade Yuanbai to dig the corner of Xingyang Mountain. Yuanbai still shook his head and said, "Forget it, I won't go to Tonggishao." Jin Qing nodded and asked, "Then I just fly a sword and spread the word on the lost mountain?" Yuanbai smiled and said, "There is Lao Jin Shanjun. Nantang Lake in Aquarius Island." Qin Hujuan held a white bowl with a drop of water in it. A small drop of water condenses 80% of the water of the old Nantang Lake. Had it not been for the sword fairy Xiao Yunyan to remind her that Yuli did not agree, she would really want to secretly build a family temple, like shrine, and erect a memorial tablet for worshipping incense every day. As a lake and water monarch, in accordance with the rules of the current Dei court and the Zhongta Confucian temple, he was allowed to open the mansion according to the regulations, similar to the mountain Jindandi Zion Kafing. This woman Hujuan plans to ask for a ritual instrument for the Confucian temple with Guanhu Academy and Shanaya Academy respectively, and then invite a book written by the sages of the Confucian temple. Before the young hermit, she took the initiative to give up the gift of merit. Because it's not a matter of business. Beiju Luzhou, Dada Gongfu, Lingyuan Gongfu Shenlin built a plaque overnight, and hung it high, even higher than the Lingyuan Gongfu plaque. Du Palace. At night, Shenlin stood outside the gate of his residence, looked up at the plaque handwritten by the young hermit, squinted and smiled. Taken from the phrase, German Tianyu. With a smile on his face, Shenlin murmured, "The German travels in the sky, the autumn moon and the cold river. The sun asks the moon to learn, the traveler misses hometown." According to legend, Zhongtu Shenzhou is the volcano group where the Taoist alchemy furnace is located. In a small wine shop, the woman who bought the wine smiled and said, "Ganzhou, do you want to recognize me as a master and learn the fairy law?" The girl asked directly, "What are the benefits?" Yang Ji said, "You can teach you several water methods." The girl frowned and said, "I may not be able to appreciate the skills of the Qisher. Even if I do, I may not be able to practice. This is called the difference between the gods and the people, the great roads and the different paths." The woman smiled and said, "You can definitely practice. Maybe in the future you will turn from muddy to clear, and you will be able to practice along the way." The old mountain Gong Xinzhou, according to the Golden Jade genealogy of today's Confucian temple, ranks from the 7th rank, which is the Qinglu official body of the Shanshui officialdom. The Chaoqiu Zaihipo in front of him, like Hibo and landlord, belong to the bottom turbid current subordinates, not as good as those county gods who belonged to the Qing dynasty. No way, the young hermit has reminded it, and the old scholar has also hinted. If I don't know anything about it, I'm worried about being put on shoes. Moreover, Chen Pingan was accompanied by a rebel Qing Tong, and I heard that Xiao Mo is now the dead man by the young hermit. The veteran talents who restored the identity of Wen Xing came with Li Xing. Zaihipo asked, "Do you need to bow your head to serve tea?" Yang Ji slapped the fan, smiled and shook his head and said, "Unknown master and apprentice, don't need it." Zaihipo said boldly, "Why don't you register your name?" "Just register your name, you can do it in one step." Yang Ji smiled, thought about it for a moment, and nodded, "It's okay." After the two sides had a bowl of wine, even if the two sides apprentice and accept apprentices, they are very relieved and have a good appetite. After leaving the night ship, the old Taoist returned to Niaozhi Mountain on the Fusher Mountain of Jushu Mountain. At that time, the 5 great sacred mountains, the mountain monarch and the of water, were all the assistant officials of their group of real immortals. To put it simply, thousands of years ago, the current mountain monarch Huai Lian was under his control in name. Now, it's upside down. Tonggishao, Town Demon Tower. The group came to the top floor. The most sacred master leaned on a railing and looked into the distance, and said with a smile, "In the middle of Tonggishao, the great blasphemy requires the great monks to move mountains and seas, and now there are Yangji and Nantaoists, plus fellow Taoists beating the drums. It's a lot more effective." Chen Pingan returned to his senses and nodded, "Maybe I need to discuss with the Lord Dong Hai." Just now, Chen Pingan was splitting his mind, and gathered books and words. Previously, Shanjun Jinqing presented a tablet inscription, summarizing all the cliff inscriptions and inscriptions on the top of Zhongyue, a mountain in the old Zhuang dynasty, up to more than 2,000 pieces. Huang Tingguo's Xiang mansion, the sword box sent by Wu Yi, besides containing an extremely rare sword pill, the Nil pill, the sword box itself carried more than 60 precious characters, which was also extremely precious. In the Kilowong waters of the Qiantang River, Chen Pingan borrowed poems from the literati Saku of the past dynasties, totaling 300,000 words, winning by quantity. The Holy Master looked into the distance. A long river of time is like 2 words. Chen Pingan said, "Now." The most sage master said softly with emotion, "If you want to make a mistake, you must be a Dianpei." Chen Pingan said slowly, "One can do everything for oneself, and one can do everything for 1,000, and that's it. The strong think more, the weak can think less." The Holy Master nodded, was silent for a moment, and asked with a smile, "I asked you if you liked or disliked the book before, so is there a sentence that impresses you the most?" "Some." Chen Pingan gave a hum, and said softly, "Yu Jepin, there is no way to write a book." The Holy Master smiled knowingly, "This idea is very good, because it is also our group of students the biggest feeling back then. Regarding the one in Chen Pingan, there are now several worlds. If you ignore the ancient Tianting ruins outside the sky, no more than 10 know this. Then don't forget, even if Chen Pingan is the new man and the old one, but one is one. Even if it was only half of the supreme existence back then, it was almost exactly half the half of Zhou Mi who had gone to the sky." The most sage master said, "Chen Pingan, you must keep your heart safe, at least until you reach the 14th realm of sword repair. It is best not to let him out, especially pay attention, do not let him occupy the dominant position." Sword of Coming Chapter 950. A thin Taoist priest, wearing a felt hat, a well-stitched cyan cotton gown, and a pair of thick cotton shoes, walked on the road like a thin bamboo pole. Next to him was a burly middle-aged man with a knife on his waist. The hilt of the knife was rubbed so that it became shiny. The man began to grow his beard a few months ago, and soon his face was full of beard. The two parties walked together on the way back to their hometown. They were not far from their hometown, which was only 30 or 40 miles away, and both belonged to the boundary of Wuling County. In fact, the Taoist priest wanted the man to be more than 20 years younger, just because he looked old, but he looked at least 10 years older than the latter. The key point is that although this Taoist priest does not have an officially recognized urn, he is a private urn, but he is a genuine cultivator, and his friends around him are pure martial arts. The two returned from a long journey together. This trip took several years, traveled a lot of places, and saw a lot of strange people and things. It is Yuan Lu, the king of the rice thief, a martial artist in the same line as a swordsman. A consummate cultivator in the Yupu realm, and a martial artist who is at the top of the 9 realms at any time. In this blue underworld, the Taoist priests of the rice thief line only look at the word rice thief, and know that their situation is not so good. They are similar to the corpse Jishen, the porter, and the one-character teacher, and they will not walk on the street. The masters are screaming and beating the wrong way, but it is best not to get close to the Baiyujing realm. Once you find your whereabouts, you will probably go to the 12th floor of the 5 cities as a guest. Qigu asked, "Do you think I should agree to Zhu Xian's invitation?" During the tour, I once passed through Yongzhou, among the 14 states of Qingming. It is one of the most abundant geomantic treasures of water transportation. The Qingshan dynasty of Bingzhou and the Yufu dynasty of Yongzhou are the most powerful dynasties in this state, and are second to none. Somehow, the two were discovered by the young female emperor of the Yufu dynasty. Zhu Xian personally showed up and invited Qi Gu to serve as a royal worship. However, both parties know that the female emperor Zhu Xian of the Yufu dynasty is cutting the Hu, because Qi Gu may be the strongest at any time and anywhere as the strongest martial artist. If you break through the Yufu dynasty, you can add a considerable amount of martial arts gifts, so Zhu Xian not only offered an enshrined status, but also offered a very generous price. Regardless of the salary, Zhu Xian promised to take out a weapon from the royal secret library, which could be used by Qigu. The time limit is 300 years, which is extremely tempting. This peerless and famous spear named Broken Formation has always been the treasure of the Yufu dynasty. Become a martial artist of the end, and hold this gun again, and he will be invincible against the air trainers under the immortal. Don't talk about winning or losing, it is estimated that it will be difficult for the opponent to run. Anyone who can rank among the young and alternate 10, whether it is a monk or a martial artist, who has few killers. On the other hand, on the Azure God dynasty, it seemed that it didn't matter where the Qigu broke through. So far, even a Taoist official hasn't appeared, let alone the emperor and Yaxiang Yao Qing. Be very angry with you. Lao Tzu is a martial artist of the 9 realms, so he doesn't come into your sight. Wang Yuanlu said, anyway, you can't move your legs after seeing a good-looking mother-in-law. Qigu said in a bad mood, you will only be stubborn. Wang Yuanlu really dared to be so prosperous on his side. When he saw an outsider, he would knot his tongue, and he couldn't explain it clearly. For example, on the side of the female emperor Zhu Xian, Wang Yuanlu kept his head down, red with ears, almost like a question and answer. Before Lu Tai and Yuaning, the Taoist priests were drinking too much, somehow. Just a few words to that young Master Lu, when he drank to the point of sadness, his drink was poor, he cried so much that he didn't go crazy because of the drunkenness. Probably the only exception is the Taoist priest son of the Xuanda who was called Cheap Ancestors by Wang Yuanlu for many years. Wang Yuanlu was indeed very heroic on the side of the old Guanzhou, and he dared to curse Lei Guopi face to face. The old View Master is the 5th person in the world who can't be beaten by thunder, especially the mantra of the poor people like to be kind to others, and never make overnight enemies with others, which is well known in the Qingming world. Therefore, Qi Gu had persuaded Wang Yuanlu privately. On the old god side, he still had to be polite, but he couldn't persuade him. If I go home this time, I won't even see Lu Jing, so I won't put my hot face on my cold ass. Qi Gu became more and more angry, cursing and grinning. Damn, the fragrance of home flowers is not as good as the fragrance of wild flowers, so I can't blame Laozi for the fragrance of flowers outside the wall. Wuling County, located in the Jiangyi of the Qingshan dynasty, is a place where rich and noble families gather and aristocratic clans lined up. Wuling County has 5 counties under its jurisdiction, Chongmao Zhenyangping. Since it is where the imperial tomb is located, it was actually a place specially used by the Qingshan dynasty to gather and place the founding lords. Today's county guard, Lu Jing, is a relative of the emperor, and he also has the status of a temple official. Jingqing and Jiangyi Taoist priests are under his control. In addition, all the mountains and rivers of the Qingshan dynasty were set up with palaces to promote officials, which were often used by the imperial court to place idle ministers who were old, more like honorary titles. Wang Yuanlu said, be careful that Yao Shoufu is staring at you. Qi Gu asked, isn't it? Wang Yuanlu frowned slightly and said, it's hard to tell. Qi Gu hesitated for a moment, and still used the method of gathering sound to form a line, and whispered to a friend around him, fortunately, our Bingzhou is under the jurisdiction of Verdant City, otherwise we would have been taken care of by the second child of Baiyujing Road. Wuling County there will never be today's fatality. Wang Yuanlu said, the same source is different, and the water is different. The people live by the water. Of course, they like the flat water. Flooding occurs every 3 days. Individuals can't stand it. They have to complain and complain. Qi Gu smiled and said, occasionally, I can still make a few words of truth. Qi Gu remembered something and said, I heard that Zhang Jiaoyu has recruited a new disciple. The Taoist grinned, fate is good, I won't be envious. Qi Gu joked, Su Jun's fate is considered good. The Taoist thought for a while, shook his head and said, Sect Master Su is not only good for fate. No, Sect Master Zu's fate is actually not good, hard fate is the real ability. Qi Gu said, one day, I will marry that white lotus root as my daughter-in-law. Taoist priests habitually lowered their heads and sleeves, their stature rickety, anti-spicy. I really want to marry, just chew chili peppers every day. Qi Gu's eyes gleamed, he shook his wrists, and grinned, as long as I win her one game, get married, and lose to her 100 or 1,000 games, it's all a problem. There are two types of fights. The Taoist whispered and complained, why do you speak so nasty? Qi Gu said, do you understand this? In the last 100 years, as the crops are on New Year's Eve, a large number of proud children of the heavens have emerged in Wuling County. There are only 2 of the 10 young candidates in the world. In addition, one of the ancestors of the Fulu school, Daifishan Huayang Palace, has a young monk with a leisurely Taoist name, and Keishishan has a female Taoist official with the Taoist name Nanshan. 2 recognized heavenly fairy embryos are now young people. Baby monk. At this moment, these 2 on the road are both young generations from Wuling County. Yuran and Nanshan are also one of the 3,000 Taoists who rushed to the colorful world. Although the 2 came from rival sects, they were in the same year. Born in the same month and on the same day, even the hour is the same. This is a match made in heaven, so that the 2 Dao officials of Difei Mountain and Saisho Mountain now have some subtle changes in their hearts. In fact, Wang Yuanlu and Qi Gu wanted to travel to the colorful world together, but the rules set by the Haoran Tianwen Temple were over there, and the realm of both sides exceeded the threshold, and they couldn't go there. In the eyes of Taoist officials on the mountain, Wuling County is a cornucopia, a nest of gods. In the eyes of several worlds, it is a golden and jade dojo that can be compared to the Liju cave of the Haoran world. There are dandies who are lying on the ancestors' merit books and waiting to die, and there are also children from Wuling who are a young man who is full of energy and work hard at his own time. Young Ranger. Anyway, they are all Wuling teenagers who are famous all over the world. But in the eyes of Wang Yuanlu and Qi Gu, it was just hometown. The rich are very rich, and the poor are too poor to open the pot and live their own lives. Lily Yuan went to the grass, fresh clothes and angry horses on the official road, dusty, and a group of rich and distinguished guests came. These horses are all young men and women, with sabers bowed back, riding horses to find flowers, romantic and heroic, full of spirits, and full of fierce spirit. The Taoist priest was just the opposite, cowering, scornful, full of trivial matters. Wang Yuanlu hurriedly moved, did not fight with the other side, took the initiative to avoid those extremely powerful and mysterious high-headed horses. Qi Gu had to follow the road, and waited for the grandson to ride the horse away. Qi Gu raised his hand and waved. Waving the dust, one hand habitually digs out the crotch, and smiles, just talk about the appearance of the skin. It really depends on whether the seed is good or not. Both of us will not help, and we will suffer a big loss. Therefore, in the future, we must find a good-looking wife. Wang Yuanlu didn't talk, and was silent for a moment, and said, the habit of digging out the crotch can be changed if it can be changed. When the woman sees it, at least the goodwill will be halved. Qi Gu smiled and said, the guy is too big to be in the right position. Wang Yuanlu said, why do you lift the belt of your pants every time you release the water? Qi Gu was speechless. How do you compare this with me? The 2 passed by a pavilion by the side of the road. Inside, a group of gambling ghosts were throwing dice, rubbing their hands together, and Wang Yuanlu glanced sideways. Qi Gu laughed, don't worry, the old rules, since I have promised you, I will definitely do what I say. Let's forget it today, I will send you home first. Chi-gu had a problem when he was young, and he was addicted to gambling. Later, I met Wang Yuanlu and became friends. As a result, Chi-gu had suffered 2 big losses in the capital of the Qingshun dynasty and Luzhou because of gambling. On both occasions, Wang Yuanlu hurried to hear the news to help settle the situation. The so-called settlement is very simple. It is the matter of Wang Yuanlu who took the money to settle the problem. Rescued Chi-gu twice and blazed a trail of blood. It can even be said that the reason why Wang Yuanlu became a Taoist priest in the line of rice thief was given by Chi-gu. However, in those years, Wang Yuanlu complained to Chi-gu at most, and was hungry for 9 meals with his eldest brother in 3 days. Wang Yuanlu's idea is very simple and simple. It is my own choice to agree to be a friend with you. Since I am a friend, I have to be like a friend. Friends don't treat me as a friend. It's a problem with my eyesight. There is nothing to complain about. After a few hardships, I feel that I can't stand it anymore and I just parted ways. Afterwards, Wang Yuanlu set a rule for Chi-gu. As long as you are at the gambling table and don't want to make money, you can gamble on it. Hundreds and thousands of taels, even the fairy money is fine. If you have no money, you can borrow money from me to gamble. But as long as you want to make money, even if it's just a few pennies, don't bet. Otherwise, we won't be friends in the future. Wang Yuanlu's only purpose in making friends is not to be stingy, to have a few close friends. This kind of talent is worth making. Chi-gu asked, I still don't plan to pierce the window paper. You don't want to show your identity to your brother. Wang Yuanlu said helplessly, I'm afraid. Chi-gu muffled and said, I have to blame me. If Wang Yuanlu was not a side-door Taoist in the line of the Mi thieves and received the urn at the court of the Qingshun dynasty, his brother's family would be regarded as a fighting way. Immortals and chickens and dogs, don't talk about splashing the sky and wealth. Set up a door in this Wuling county, open the branches and scattered leaves, and then pass on the incense for several generations. It can't be said that it is the family of the prefecture in the same place. Now that he hasn't become it, he is involved. Wang Yuanlu has too many enemies on the mountain. Wang Yuanlu shook his head, it's not like that. Little days have the stability of small days, and my elder brother also has his own life. Chi-gu can only treat himself as a friend comforting himself. Wang Yuanlu's brother, named Wang Yuanfu, is a local butcher. Today, holding a pair of large intestines and a pound of loose wine from a roadside wine shop, he wandered to the door of his son-in-law's Huangni hut, smelling with a face. I met my daughter and son-in-law who went out to greet me, and complained, I fell the stove and lost my luck, and married a daughter who was supposed to marry a rich man as a wife, and marry you, a poor devil who is a treasure in this world. Over the years, I don't know how much I've been tired, but now I don't know what virtues accumulated in my ancestors, which led you to become a Taoist boy, and there will be more reasons not to do business in the future. My heart is fat and I don't know how much hardship I will spend in the future. Silver, could it not be owed to you in the previous life, and the debt is collected in this life? If there is another life, please remember to pay it back to me. Wang Yuanfu bent down and lowered his head. How dare he return his mouth, glanced at the hip flask, swallowed, and he was indeed greedy. Not surprisingly, a jug filled with a caddy of loose wine, the old man still had to take it home after drinking the wine. The identity of the Taoist boy who was said by the old husband to be lifted by him is actually a candidate for Taoist priests, similar to Howren's Tongxing fame. With this identity, he will participate in the county government examination once every 3 years. Opportunity. After passing the exam, you can get the status of an Orthodox Taoist recognized by the imperial court. However, it is still one step away from the real master of Taoism, and you have to wait to fill the vacancy. When there is a real vacancy, whether it is an official errand or a temple, can you be regarded as a serious Taoist official? The big and round Tuzi said to the daughter who seemed to throw water out, "Go, boil the intestines, and then boil a pot of wine to eat." Wang Yuanfu led the old man into the house and walked a little later. The old man was very loud and spitting. Wang Yuanfu secretly raised his sleeve and wiped his face. When the old man sat down, Wang Yuanfu shook his robe and took a seat lightly. Tu Zi took a look from the corner of his eye. He was very careful and really regarded himself as a Taoist official, just for the sake of that Taoist boy. Then he resisted not saying anything, and asked, "Where is your brother who hasn't lived all the year round?" Wang Yuanfu smiled bitterly. "It's been a long time since I heard from you." The old man sneered, "I don't know how to send a letter from my family. I raised a younger brother for nothing." Fortunately, Wang Yuanlu is still a literate man who has read a book. These years he has been so pitiful to be outside, so he won't even get a copy. "I can't bear to spend the money for the letter." According to the genealogy of the ancestral hall in the village, it is the original character, and the name needs to be embedded with the word Yuan. In fact, Wang Yuanlu's real name is Wang Yuanlu. Wang Yuanfu still didn't dare to talk back. In the world of Qingming, Taoist officials have a wide range of identities and titles. It is not only Qi practitioners who can become Taoists. Ordinary masters without the qualifications to practice can also obtain Taoist salutes as long as they pass the government examination, but they will be given different methods. In addition to those issued by the imperial court, there are also those that have been passed on from generation to generation. There are also some masters who have gained the Taoism and Zhenjing, secretly taught talismans, and opened the door to the wind. Like this Wang Yuanfu, who was looked down upon by the old man, even if he was lucky enough to become a Taoist official in the future, most of it would still be like that turbulent subordinate official. If he does not enter the Qinglu rank, his future promotion path will be relatively narrow, and he is most likely to be transferred. Go to a remote small Taoist temple, or work as an errand in some Qingshui yamen like the county government office and the brewing bureau. But for Wang Yuanfu, who was born in poverty and had no shoes, if there is such a day, it is already a matter of glorious lintel. He can go to the village ancestral hall to burn incense and worship the ancestors. Just like the younger brother Wang Yuanlu, who has studied Taoism law for 20 years, he has applied for many times and failed to get an official Taoist official, mainly in Wuling County. The number of Taoist priests is limited. There are many typical monks and few kanji. Those wealthy children who studied at a young age and had masters' preaching and teaching careers, of course, have inherent advantages and are good at arranging questions. After all, the examiner and Taoist who have the title of lawyer, how to make questions is also a matter of learning. Besides, I blame my younger brother Wang Yuanlu for being too high-spirited. He was so eager to get the prestigious master of the largest Taoist temple in his hometown. He passed the exam. After several years of walking experience, he hopes to be responsible for the abbot of Taoist science and technology. The rail instructs the officials to sit as the prestige of advance and retreat. It's just that the prestigious masters in the largest Taoist temple in Wuling County, how easy it is to pass the exam, let alone Wang Yuanlu, are those who have been overwhelmed by their ancestors, and now there is no such thing as a fall in the family. The old man said, "Your brother is just a thing that can't be helped. It's best if you don't return it. It's a matter of multiple pairs of chopsticks, but it's actually not a problem." When my daughter begged himself to help her uncle, he helped find a silver shop apprentice in the county seat. How good is it to make a living, otherwise there would be the old saying, "A thief is not a silversmith." Never thought that the kid didn't know what was good or bad. He couldn't live or die, and had to stay on the mountain. Coincidentally, Wang and son-in-law were talking about Wang Yuanlu. Wang Yuanlu returned to his hometown, stood outside the threshold at this moment, and shouted, "Brother." Seeing his younger brother who hadn't seen him for several years outside the door, Wang Yuanfu was very happy, but he was still stern, just about to stand up, but just raised his butt. He quickly sat back on the bench, just nodded, and said, "Go to the stove. Over there, say hello to your sister-in-law." Wang Yuanlu gave a hum, turned around and left. Tu Zi slapped the table, and said with an aura, "I didn't know how to say hello to me when I saw each other, something that I didn't understand." Wang Yuanfu smiled and said, "This is how Yuanlu was when he was a child. He is a little more withdrawn, and he is not close to anyone." Tu Zi sneered and sneered. As far as his ethics is concerned, someone needs to be willing to get close to whomever he wants to be close to. People in their 30s are already in their 30s. You can't even find an ugly ant on the bed. Putting your face on the grave to worship your ancestors is counted, one head is killed, the incense is burned, and the next life is a good fetus. At least don't look so stubborn, walk at night, let alone scare people, ghosts will be scared to death by him. Wang Yuanfu's face was embarrassed. After all, it's the old man, not easy to get angry. After a meal, Tu Zi and Wang Yuanfu were sitting on the table. Wang Yuanlu was reluctant to eat at the table, so he picked up a few chopsticks and vegetables and squatted at the door holding a bowl. Wang Yuanfu persuaded him that he knew that this younger brother was a very determined person, and he didn't understand the world, so he couldn't persuade him. Wang Yuanlu bowed his head to pick up rice outside the door, but Qi Gu did not go to the door and went back to each house. The rice in the bowl was very strong, and the rice spoon was pressed hard. When the rice bottomed out, Wang Yuanlu held the large white bowl and stared at the front in a daze. Without complaining about the hardship of the world, the dumb smiled and ate coptis. Wang Yuanlu turned his head, raised his head again, swallowed that mouthful of rice, and asked, "Why did Bixiao Cave Lord come?" In the previous round of Mingyu's migration to the Qingming world, on that day, Wang Yuanjun saw this old man in a distance, with a big frame and a high level of Taoism, and he stood beside the second child of Bai Yujing Dao. I heard Sun Guanju said that it was the cave master of Bixiao Cave in Luobao Beach, who lived a long time of 10,000 and then increased for thousands of years, and liked to break his wrist with Dao ancestors. If I will meet this senior in the future, I will kowtow a few times without saying anything. It must be correct. The old Guanju said calmly, "Wander around." Wang Yuanlu nodded and said, "Whatever you want." It seems that the higher the Dao Fa of the other party, the less stage fright the young Taoist priest will be. The old master asked, "What do you see, so sad?" Wang Yuanlu replied, "The sky is like a dragon, and the colossal body quietly fell to the ground, and the body was covered with mosquitoes, flies and maggots, lingering. Over time, it may be full of flowers and plants. So sad. How to say? The grass grew and flowers bloomed, and the mountains and plains were all gone. Of course we can wait another time, but what if we are those flowers and plants?" Hearing this, the master of Old View showed a look of approval, and smiled. "Who do you not practice?" Wang Yuanlu continued to hold the bowl and asked, "Is the world going into chaos?" Old Guanju asked, "Does this kind of future matter have anything to do with you?" Wang Yuanlu nodded, "Not yet." Lower your head and chop the rice, eat the last bite of rice, chew slowly, and the young Taoist priests chewed on the words jiang and lai together. The old man smiled while stroking his beard. "The life is in the sky, and the life is in me." In the land of Jiangyi of the Qingshan dynasty, a royal palace called Changsha Palace has a three-wu temple with a bright yellow cloud-patterned glazed tile, which is the first of a country's Taoist temple. Today, Yaxiang Yaoqing and national teacher Bai O are here to entertain two distinguished guests. They are a pair of Taoists with different ages, the master of the Great Tide, Su Jun, and the founder of Liangjing Mountain. Yaoqing took the couple of Taoists around Sanwa Temple and came to an elegant house, where Bai O personally made tea to entertain the guests. The Taoist temple is so named because of the 3 phoenix trees planted by the founding emperor before the Taoist temple, named Yitong, Wudong and Jingtong. Plant bananas for 1 day, bamboo for 1 year, and willow for 10 years and pine for 100 years. Plan for thousands of years to plant phoenix trees. The green leaves, guazhua stretches, and is the best in the state. And the 3 phoenix trees had already been successfully refined and served as royal consecrations. This place is also the place where the first emperor of the Qingshan dynasty died and left alone. And Yaxiang Yaoqing, of course, is the head of the Gu Ming minister who has no suspense. In Qingming world, there is no such rule that emperors and monarchs cannot practice in Haoran world. Therefore, in the 14 states in the world, there is often that emperor, who is not only the founder of the country, but also the king of the subjugation. In the Haoran world, it is extremely rare to be the emperor of longevity to claim the emperor's reign. But here, anyone who sits on the dragon chair for no more than a year belongs to the short-lived emperor. On Bingzhou Mountain, there is an undocumented gossip. It is said that before the death of the emperor, he had a heart-to-heart dialogue with Yaxiang Yaoqing. The first emperor once said, "It is not the blessing of the society to master the doubts of the young country, and the emperor can take it for himself." Yaoqing replied, "If I have the strength to face south, I can help the young master to become a Mingjun." As for how this private face-to-face conversation between the monarch and the ministers spread, Sun Guanzhu said with certainty that it must be our old man Lu, who was the gentleman of Liangshan, who overheard the conversation and couldn't stop talking. The female crown titled Resurgence took the teacup from Bai O Root and asked with a smile, "Why did you think of asking that monster a punch?" She didn't care whether she would be taboo, whether she would sprinkle salt on the wounds of the white lotus root. White lotus appearance is extremely colorful, charming and natural. On her waist there is a very well-known short halberd named Iron Chamber. The Pei Cup of the Daduan dynasty and the Haoran are all female masters, and they are all masters of the same country. Almost every 10 years, Bai O will ask one of the 10 martial artists who have jointly commented on it. In 4 rounds of Wenquan, Bai O won a complete victory, and 3 died. The only one who survived also fell. Therefore, the world's 10 masters of Jiaozi's commentary fell by 4 at once, and Wu's commentary was reduced to a joke and decoration. Although Bai O is a woman, she presents an invincible and majestic posture at the top of martial arts in the Qingming world. A short halberd, unmatched, sweeping the world. It's just that Bai's choice of this time and Run Yifeng's hard questioning of fists is definitely not a wise move in the eyes of the outside world. After all, he was a pure swordsman who even Daozu admired. The white lotus noodles had a bitter color, and shook his head, not willing to talk about it. They all failed to reach the top of Leap Moon Peak, but only walked halfway up the mountain and received a punch. It was I who suggested that Bai O go to Runhua Peak and try to see what I really have. Yaoqing said with a smile, Lin Zhongxian made 2 shots before. It was too measured and easily misunderstood by Bai O, and his self-esteem was too high. White Lotus Root and Runhua Peak worked hard, both of them were the gods of Wufu's limit, one was the second in the world, and the third. Yaoqing smiled and said, "The gap is not small, and I still haven't been able to try the hard work of martial arts." Bai O Root can be described as obedient to the elegant appearance of this master and father. Chao Gus said, "This rice thief King Yuanlu, with his sharp sense of mind, is about to catch up with the Ascendant Realm. Didn't the Azure God dynasty intend to recruit?" Yaoqing smiled and said, "This guy is just a troublemaker. The more trouble he is, the more trouble he will come to find him. Our Azure God dynasty can't stand it." Bai O knows a secret matter. Before Wang Yuanlu became famous, Master Shofu took him to Wuling County several times. He saw this young man, but did not teach any Taoism, as if just chatting. Chao Ge asked tentatively, Then let Wang Yuanlu go to Liangjing Mountain. I can guarantee that he can be the mountain lord in the future. How about? Yao Qing shook his head and said, neither he nor Liang Jingshan have this fate. Bai O has been observing that Su Jun, which is strange. This young ghost repairer is not surprising at all. How can you have so many opportunities? In the past, it was the rival Dachao Zong and Liang Jingshan. Now the two are side by side, regardless of top and bottom. Anyway, the authentic lord is Su Jun. It was not that Liang Jingshan had no objections at the beginning, but Chaoge was the originator of the mountain, and she had no objection. What about the disciples and grandchildren? In addition to the later wedding banquet on the mountain, which was hailed as unprecedented, 4 of the guests who drank the wedding wine were among the top 10 in Qingming. Yu Dou, Lu Shen, Wu Zhou, Sun Huaizhong. If you add in that there was a pure martial artist who did not reveal his identity at that time, because he was only willing to sit at the corner table, and this person was also Su Jun's year-end friendship, then there would be 5. It is the first person in martial arts in the world, Lin Jiangxian. Moreover, Su Jun's path of practice is too legendary. It is rumored that the 3 heads of Bai Yujing taught Lu Shen and taught Su Jun a few talismans. The Xuandu watched Sun Huaizhong and taught young ghosts to teach swordsmanship. The sub-sage of the Confucian Temple has taught Su Jun what he has learned, coupled with the first person in the world to make alchemy, and Lin Jiangxian's boxing skills, so that the outside world is speculating whether this Su Jun is a true disciple of the Taoist ancestor. It's like an examination paper. Even if you know the answer in advance, Su Jun will have to write and write. From the beginning of becoming a ghost, in just 2 decades, Su Jun wants to meet so many big people, and he is busy. N.S. Chao Gu said, Zimi, I need to trouble Yaxiang for this visit. Yao Qing smiled and said, Senior, please say it. Yixiang Yao Qing, the word capital beauty. Calculated according to the age on the mountain, Chao Gu is a well-deserved senior, more than 1,000 years older than Yao Qing. Chao Gu said sternly, I need to ask you to go out of the mountain to help protect the road. Yao Qing said straightforwardly, location. Chao Gu said, it's in Liangjingshan. Yao Qing asked, specific time. Chao Gu was relieved, undecided for the time being, wait for my secret letter. Yao Qing smiled and said, I wish sect Master Su and Daoist fellows in the restoration of the mission every wish. Su Jun stood up, took 3 steps back, respectfully bowing his head, and said in a deep voice, the juniors are here to thank Mr. Yao. Originally did not intend to be such a polite Chaoge, so the husband sang the woman's accompaniment, got up to say thank you to Yao Qing. The 14th level female Xiao Wuzhou with the Taoist name Taiyin has a very good relationship with Chaoge. After attending the wedding banquet at the beginning, before leaving, Wuzhou gave Su Jun a refining fairy tactic, and then taught an additional one. The door has long been lost to the ghost repairing technique. Husband Su Jun is a ghost. Especially monks, who want to go out to travel and obtain customs clearance documents, they need to file with the court, and they will be rejected in all likelihood. Even if they are approved, the specific itinerary needs to be filed with Bai Yujing. Many dynasties simply banned any monks from entering the country. There are even 2 states that directly ban temples and do not allow monks to teach the Dharma. Bingzhou is relatively relaxed, but it is as big as the Qingshan dynasty, with only 16 temples. However, the first auxiliary manpower rejected the public opinion, and the imperial court has begun to prepare for the construction of 2 brand new temples in recent years. In the world of Qingming, it may be more difficult for a monk to build a temple than to build a sect in the world of Haoran. This matter requires permission from Bai Yujing. For this reason, the Azure God dynasty has expended a lot of merit. It is said that even the Majesty who was ridiculed by Bezu as the nodding emperor rarely asked Master Shofu why. The purple-clothed monk folded his hands together and said softly, "The little monk is here to be alone with Mr. Yao." Yao Qing smiled and nodded. "Before the monk leaves, remember to leave the set of Luohan murals for Hueco Temple as agreed." In a temple, not all monks can be called monks. Only the abbot, the first monk, and other eminent monks can deserve this honorific title. Baia's heart moved slightly, and she guessed the identity of the other party. "I remember that there was an extremely mysterious monk in the Qingming world. His appearance and identity were changeable, pretentious, and he claimed that my heart is a Buddha, and he also threatened that patriarch came to the West without intention. This monk is especially good at painting Luohan statues. Every time there is a real relic, it is eluding. Not to mention those temples, but the Taoist temples built by the emperors of the world. They are willing to support the real books. There are even more rumors. The evil demons do not need to set up altars by the local Taoist officials. You only need to take out the Arhat statue, whether it is praying for rain or filthy, all works." The monk smiled and said, 16 pictures? 18 pictures. Yao Qing smiled and said, "Of course, the more the better." The monk said, "The painting is finished." Yao Qing didn't feel surprised, and asked, "Where are you going next?" The monk said, "First go to Yuzhou to enjoy the snow." Yao Qingji said goodbye. The monk smiled and nodded, chanting aloud a piece of scrap that was well known in the Qingming world, and he strode away. His style was outstanding, his figure dissipated, there was no ripple in the spirit of the world, and he disappeared in a flash. Bai O was silent for a moment, and asked, "This person's cultivation level?" Besides Buddhism, swordsmanship is exquisite and straightforward, unparalleled in the world. Yao Qing said, "One sword frost and cold 14 states," he said, "and that's his." At the New Year's Eve shop in Qilong Lane, the shopkeeper sure is soft and mute, staying up late to watch for the new year. The grass-head shop next door is going to be more lively. A pair of siblings, Zhao Xuxia and Zhao Luan. A pair of seniors, Zhao Dengao and Tian Jiuer. A pair of apprentices, white-haired boys, Yao Xiaoyan. Also add a Chui peanut who was abducted by the big white goose. The white-haired boy was stepping on the bench at this moment, pulling the two surnamed Xiao punches, yelling that the two brothers are good, 5 liters, 10 full houses, and so on. On the New Year's Eve in the small town, there is the custom of asking for dinner. They will light up the lights and set up a table of wine and vegetables. The elderly and women will guard a brazier and will not stop by and just wait for the young and strong neighborhoods. Neighbors, come here as guests. The guys who have good relationships with the neighbors will sit down and drink, eat vegetables and punch. The relationship is average. Most of them will go after a glass of wine. The elderly women greeted each other, and when they called out according to their seniority, grandparents, aunts, they filled the bags with fruits, sugar cane, and the like. It's only late at night that every household closes the door, and then early in the morning, the men who are the heads of the family have to get up on time again, because there are different times of the year, and there are rules for opening doors and burning firecrackers. The old welcomes the new. As for the specific time to open the door, it is often determined by some old people in the small town. It is said that the few shopkeepers who opened the red and white wedding shops in the small town in the early years understood this very well. Today, those young people who have moved to Zhouqing are not so particular. It is said that some of them even open the door and let the housekeeper do the work for them. Although Huaihuang County nowadays, the taste of the year is getting lighter year by year, and almost no one goes to ask for dinner, but the 2 shops in Qilong Lane still open the door according to the old rules. With wine. Shi Rou, who was sitting by the brazier, raised her head and looked towards the door when a distinguished guest came. A snow-white robe. The maid next to Song Jisin in Ni Ping Alley in the past, Ji Gui, now the true Dragon King Zhu, is one of the 4 sea kings in the world. For some reason, this Dong Hai-jun seems to be in a good mood at the moment. The inside of the shop was as bright as daylight in the New Year's Eve. Shiro braced, carefully waited, and called the other party a young girl, and then smiled. "Sit down and drink some wine." Wang Zhu nodded, crossed the threshold, and sat at the table. Shiro helped to pour the wine. Wang Zhu picked up the chopsticks. There was a plate of stinky mandarin fish on the table. Good. In the past, Nipping Lane was a hard place to settle down and get together. Otherwise, you made money and moved to other wider streets early. According to the old town saying, this is a place with flowing water, and there is no way to stay. Residents, so every Chinese New Year's Eve, there is only the alley, because there is a pretty widow, so that no one will pass by the whole alley, and the 2 adjacent houses are roughly located in the middle of the alley. In fact, no one came to ask for dinner. At most, it was a short cut or to the widow's house. Only then pass through Mud Bottle Alley without even looking at it. One is a bad luck broom star, the other is an illegitimate child with a mother and no father, who is not seen, plus a maid of unknown origin, who is unrelated and unreasonable, who rarely visits the house, and those 2 people of the same age do not visit each other. At that time, Song Jisin, every time it was the 30th eve of the new year, he would often get angry and let Jigue simply close the gate of the courtyard. If love comes, the uncle rarely waits on you. This is not the case next door. The gate is always open. If there is snow in the alley, it will help gather the snow in the whole alley to the corner of the wall, making it easier for passers-by to walk. Song Jisin was bored occasionally, and he liked to stand at the door of the house, and began to talk strangely with yin and yang. In the middle of the night, he opened the door and waited for ghosts to come. The peers in the house next door never returned their mouths. Later, when Chen Pingon met Lu Xianyang, he would watch the night together around the stove. Lu Xianyang often deliberately spoke in a loud voice. Wang Zhu turned his head and looked at the child standing on the small bench behind the counter. "Hey, what's your name?" The little mute who was flipping through the book raised his head and said blankly, "Don't you know? My name is Hey." Wang Zhu didn't care about anything with this grumpy child. It was pretty good. Little thorny head. She smiled and took a chopstick to serve with wine and vegetables. The taste was good. She didn't have to go to Aquarius Island in vain, her ancestor. At the gate of the house, brand new blessing characters and spring couplets were put on. Shiro hurriedly rounded up and said, "His real name is Zhou Junchen and his nickname is Aha." She doesn't like to talk at ordinary times, so she has the nickname of a little dumb, who is Pei Qian's apprentice. Wang Zhu mentioned the white porcelain wine glass, took a sip of the drink, and smiled. "Pei Qian's apprentice. Then you want to call Chen Pingon a master." The little mute wanted to say something about you, but when the shopkeeper Shiro winked at him, the child had to swallow the words back into his stomach, pretending to be deaf and dumb. At the door, there is a white-haired boy with arms around his chest, leaning against the door of the house, and tut-tut there. Wang Zhu turned his head and smiled and asked, "Are you? Can't even see the true state of the other party." The white-haired boy sneered, "I'm afraid to scare you to death. Try it. I am a handyman disciple of Luopa Mountain, the only one." Wang Zhu smiled and raised the wine glass. "Let me be shocked." The fairy mansion on the mountain can generally be divided into the ancestors of the ancestor hall, the outer gate, and the disciples of the handyman. The so-called ancestry, that is, the master and the preacher, have seats in the ancestor hall. In the outer door, the teacher's inheritance and the Dharma lineage are the same. Master failed to sit down and participate in discussions at the Zushitang Jinyu genealogy, but because there are no chairs at the Patriarch Hall of Jiaisfeng, if they accept disciples now, even if it is personally passed on, they still belong to outer disciples. As for the handyman, he doesn't even have a teacher. They often enter the mountain and barely start mountaineering practice, but they are not qualified and cannot apprentice a teacher. The white-haired boy swaggered into the house, stood on tiptoe, and sat on the bench by the table with arms around his chest, staring blankly at the young woman with a special identity, Danfang eyes, melon face, beautiful, but cold. A little bit. Wang Zhu has a calm look, drinks for himself, with a few chopsticks and wine and dishes. The white-haired boy asked, "I heard that you and our hidden official ancestor have been neighbors for many years." Wang Zhu said. The white-haired boy asked with a smile in his heart, "Have you ever thought that you can't go down in the barren world? What if you change to the Qingming world?" Wang Zhu frowned slightly. Is that what he meant? Back then, she resisted not going to the barren world through Guishu, and indeed she had experienced some mental torment. Facts have proved that it is the right choice to have no luck. Or will the monk of the sneaky dragon breeder put a fishing net somewhere in the ruins and catch it right? The white-haired boy rolled his eyes. The hidden official ancestors have a heavy workload, and they are busy with major events that can affect the trend of the world casually. How can you care about such trivial things? I just mentioned it casually. Chen Qinglu, the dragon slayer, although he is not a pure sword repair in the 14th realm, he is a real 14th realm at any rate. When a battle is over, the world is going to happen, in his cohesive way. I don't want to see you. Chen Qinglu once made a great aspiration to teach that there is no real dragon in the world. There is a loophole here to drill. There is no such thing as the world, but Qingming can have it. She could barely conflict with Qin Kinglius main road. When she got there, the girl Zhigui looked for a few more patrons. Well, to be precise, they are each other's patrons. Allies, everyone should make a good plan and make a big one. As a place of refuge, what day would you be afraid of the dragon-slashing people who crossed the world? They say that the strong dragon does not crush the snake, so it is just a snake that crosses the river. Can you not be afraid of the dragon? The great monks in the Haoran world and the Qingming world, traveling between the two worlds, are to suppress the realm in accordance with the rules set by the Confucian Temple Ritual Saint and the Baiyujing Grand Master. Wang Zhu smiled and shook his head. Even if it is the same 14th level cultivator, as long as the opponent is a dragon slayer, I have no chance of winning. As long as I don't run, I will definitely die. Even in the East China Sea, which looked like his own dojo, and entered the 14th realm, Wang Zhu admitted that he could not fight against the dragon slayer. The only advantage is that, as one of the 4 seas lords under the edict of the Confucian Temple, Chen Qinglu did not dare to ask Jianshui Mansion casually. Unexpectedly, Wang Zhu settled on the matter. Not only the real dragon, but also the many dragons of different bloodlines in the world, but also a few of the world's aquatic spirits, Narcissus, and even the chi practitioners who major in water law. Chen Qinglu, who has succeeded in cutting the dragon and has some kind of great fortune, will be defeated by the natural road. Simply put, facing these 3, Chen Qinglu can be regarded as a pure sword repairman in the 14th realm. Once the sword is released, it is like cutting melons and vegetables. The white-haired boy frowned silently and looked solemn. It seems to be thinking about some big problem, but in fact it is just defamation. Why is it different from the information in the spy? Could it be that the Xiaomi grain information is wrong and the military information is falsely reported? It's not always said that the neighbor of the ancestor of the hidden officer, the neighbor of Mud Bottle Alley, has eyes on the eyebrows. Why is it so self-knowing? Forget it, being a lobbyist is really not my good point. Xiao Bai, who is in addition to the palace, is the kind of expert who walks freely. On the side of the night ship, someone asked her to persuade Wang Zhu to go to the crane tower in the Qingming world to build the road. It is the best. According to that person, anyway, even if Wang Zhu went to Qingming World, her existence was a tasteless one for Sui Chu Gong. Apart from helping gather water transport, she was destined to be of little help. Thinking of Wu Shuangjiang, the white-haired boy hurriedly raised his wine glass, suffocated, and was shocked by the drink. The Qi practitioner is not afraid of his own inner demon, but the Wawawation demon is afraid of the Qi practitioner. If this kind of embarrassment spreads, he can't be laughed out of his teeth. Wang Zhu suddenly asked, I heard that there is a large gate called Sui Chu Gong in Qingming World, and there is a stork tower by the water. The white-haired boy was stunned, and said with a guilty conscience, I am a monk born and raised in the world. Wang Zhu smiled and turned it off. The white-haired boy was very worried, and asked tentatively, did not mind, what are you asking about this? Wang Zhu raised the wine glass and said with a smile, don't talk about these annoying things, if you hit a match, then drink. The white-haired boy lifted the wine glass, tapped it lightly, let's go. The white-haired boy, looking at Wang Zhu's eyes, there is a kind of miserable sympathy for both of us. When Wang Zhu was aware of this emotion, it was rare that he was not angry, as if being pitiful by a handyman disciple who claimed to be Luopashan, couldn't he be angry? After drinking the wine, Wang Zhu walked out of this New Year's Eve shop and climbed up the stairs on the side of Qilong Alley. She slowly climbed up, and she missed the cold season before leaving the town. She was also full of frostbite on her hands. So every time she went out to fetch water from the iron lock well, she only carried half of the bucket of water, swaying and reaching the mud. Pour it into the water tank in Pingxiang Alley, and there is only half a bucket of water left. Later, when we met for the last time, someone once left a sentence similar to a prophecy. The sky is high and the earth is wide in the Deng Crane Tower, and the lower Crane Tower has a long history. This person had also revealed secrets for her, and taught her how to deal with the dragon slasher who renewed the dispute over the Great Tao. It seems that whether she goes or stays, she has a choice. And in the end, the man smiled and said that he really encountered the kind of hurdle he could not pass in the future, so he went to his junior brother, saying that it was Brother Qi's request. Wang Zhu felt a little irritable, took a deep breath, turned his head and looked at the two adjacent shops under Qilong Alley. The lights in the house flooded out of the shop, even the pedestrians who did not pass, still silently illuminate the night road in the alley. She didn't like the sound of books in that school and the reason of someone, and she didn't like the kindness of the person next door to Mud Bottle Alley. I don't like the one big and one small. They have the same, it's okay, in fact, it's okay, every yesterday never wasted today, and every tomorrow is today's hope. Maybe she didn't know how to like it, so she pretended to hate it on purpose. It may be that you know certain truths, but you just can't do it, don't dare to hate your own weakness, and have no choice but to hate those who can do it. Just like in the winter, a charcoal cage from someone else's house can only warm his hands for a while before returning it. Luopa Mountain, at the gate of the mountain. Today, the little man who came to light the incense, had a drink with Taoist Master Xian Wei, and staggered across the threshold of the house. When he reached the gate of the house, the little guy couldn't help but cursed. Once again, like drilling a dog hole, crawling on the ground, crawling through the gap in the gate, patted the dust, the white snake under the command of the Chituan Mountain Land Master is still waiting in the distance. As a result, I saw a scholar with an elegant appearance. He was not too old. He was in his early 30s and stood in a daze at the foot of the mountain. The boy Zhu Yi rushed all the way, blocking the middle of the mountain gate archway, and shouted, "Who are you?" Without waiting for the other party to answer, he felt that talking with someone up his head and his neck was too tired. Zhu Yi boy hurriedly turned and ran up a few steps with his hands on his hips. The little guy solemnly reminded, "You can't enter the gate without permission. Guest, if you come to find someone on the mountain, you have to report to Tao Master Xian Wei first." The scholar smiled and introduced himself. My name is Li Shixing, I come from Fulu Street over the town, and I am Li Baoping's elder brother. The incense villain was dumbfounded and trembling. What? It turned out to be the elder brother of our chief Rudder Li. Although the opponent is not an officialdom, but there are people in the opponent's court. Since the background is so big, why don't you beat the gongs and drums all the way to set off firecrackers when you go out? As soon as Zhu Yitong ran up the steps, he immediately ran down the steps and returned to the gate of the mountain. He made a big gesture and said respectfully, the little hometown is in the Manta Mountain Earth Temple. Now he is in the Ziqinghuang Temple. As an errand over there, I have to eat food. Thanks to the appreciation of the guardians of the fallen mountain Zhou, I am the right guardian of Qilong Alley. It is an honor to see Master Li here. Li Shixing smiled and said, I have old acquaintances with Qin Shanzhu, so I don't have to disturb Dao Master Xianwei reading. I am quite familiar with Luopa Mountain and can climb on my own. Zhu Yitong immediately calculated and weighed in his heart, thinking that since he is the elder of Li Zongrua, and is an old friend with Qin Shanzhu, he went up the mountain anonymously on the side of Xianwei, which seems not to be a bad rule. Zhu Yitong asked tentatively, Master Li, Rong Shao, help lead the way. Later on the climbing road, I have to give a hint to Master Li, and turn around to give us a good word. Let's not talk about the general guardian of Qilong Alley at that time, and be a small rudder master who sits on the same level as Li Huai. It's not idiotic dreaming. Xianwei opened the gate and walked out in his cloak. At any rate, he was a cultivator. Xianwei still noticed the movement at the gate of the mountain. Zhu Yitong hurried to help the Master Li to introduce his identity, so that the immortal Wei who was guarding the door would be blinded, and the flood would rush into the Dragon King Temple. Li Shixing smiled and invited, Father Xianwei Daoist, climb the mountain together. Xianwei quickly refused and said, watching at night to read, I want to go back to read. I just feel that this fresh-faced scholar is really good-natured, and I just stopped by in the middle of the night, and even want to pull myself to climb the mountain together. Li Shixing, a Confucian student, smiled and saluted the young Taoist priest. The Taoist Xianwei accepted it calmly, only to exchange courtesy, and then return to a Taoist chief. Su Dian hesitated for a moment, and reached out to take over an oil paper-wrapped pastry. Are you really asking about supper? On the night of the New Year's Eve, people in Fulu Street and Taoya Alley, and people outside these two streets, one day and one place, generally do not move around each other. In the old town, Fulu Street and Taoya Lane, there were 4 surnames in 10 tribes. The 4 surnames of the old town of Gaomen, Lu, Li, and Zhaosong have always been headed by Lu, because before the fall of the Lu dynasty, it was the suzerain of the Dali Song, and the founding emperor of Lu was with Fu Lu. Street Lusher has inextricably linked origins. In addition, 10 tribes like Yuan, Chao, and Xia all had great figures from their ancestors. After they left Lizhu Dongtian, they all became famous. Nowadays, there are the 2 surnames of the Shangzhou Kingdom of the Dai Court, in addition to the sword fairy Chao Shi of Nanpu Suzhou, and the heavenly monarch Xiesher of Luzhou in Beiju, etc. Just talk about a night lane, and there are the hermit Qin Pingan, the king Song Jisun of the Dali domain, and Gu Kan, the direct disciple of Jingzhuzhong. There is still the Zhenhai Tower in Nanpu Suozhou, where the ancestral home of the sword fairy Chao Shi is stationed. In Sudian, apart from the drugstore, the only person you know in the small town in your hometown is Hu Feng, who is a few years older than her. Hu Feng's family used to run a free business. He would also often work as a part-time job with his grandfather, doing brick and tile carpentry work, or walking down the street to help sharpen his knives. But Hu Feng also left his hometown, but Hu Feng stayed here, and Su Dian had nothing to talk about with him. Shi Lingshan smiled and said, "Guess who I saw in Qilong Lane just now?" Su Dian was silent, chewing the cakes, and it was not worth making a fuss about anyone he saw anyway. Years ago, there was often a shaggy, yellow-faced little girl in Qilong Alley. She pretended to pass by that Qilong Alley accidentally. She walked very slowly, sniffing her nose gently, smelling the scent of pastries, and the girl's belly grew stronger. Growing hungry. The delicious pastries that I dreamed of when I was young, as well as the colorful fabrics in the cloth shop, once made the hungry girl feel that it is the most remote good thing in the world, but when I grow up, I have it on hand. With money, I don't know why, but I don't even think about it at all. Shi Lingshan said, "I took a look at her from a distance, like Wang Zhu in Qilong Lane. He used to be a small town close at hand, but now he is a big figure far away." Su Dian just snorted. Anyway, she is not from the same group. She is not interested in the wealth and prosperity of these fellow villagers. Nowadays, Old Longzhou and Zhenchuzu are recognized as the land of hidden dragons and crouching tigers on one continent. From the perspective of Sudian, they are nothing compared to the past. Old Man Yang didn't like to mention this. Shi Lingshan once asked, and ended up receiving a screaming curse. Old Man Yang has always been like this, or he would not speak at all, or he would talk horribly as soon as he opened his mouth. "I want to go outside to recognize my brother. Do you want to hold a stinky foot, or is the Taoya Lane Shijia hungry for you, and you have to go to another house to ask for a bite of hot shit?" After that, Shi Lingshan didn't dare to ask any more questions. Su Dian thought for a while, and said, "How many people are there?" "There are a few people on the master's genealogy. I don't know how many are now alive. But apart from Li and Jing, there are indeed others." Shi Lingshan raised his head, full of curiosity. Su Dian shook his head and said, "I know the names of the two senior brothers and sisters, but the master didn't say whether you can reveal their identities, so don't ask more. The two seniors and younger brothers in the room have very different temperaments." From Shi Lingshan's point of view, the master didn't say that it was impossible, that's okay. But on the side of senior sister Sudian, the master didn't say yes, just not. Su Dian suddenly said, "I plan to follow master's instructions. After this year, when Li Huai comes back and tells him something, I will go out for a long trip." Shi Lingshan asked, "Where are the senior sisters going? How far is the journey? Is it the ruins of an ancient battlefield in another continent?" He and senior sister haven't left Aquarius Island yet. The younger generation in the town seems to like to travel far more than the other. Su Dian knew that the younger brother had misunderstood, and explained, "I plan to practice alone this time, so I won't take you." Shi Lingshan was disappointed, but did not entangle her, because she knew the temper of the senior sister. She was very angry, and what she believed would not be changed. Su Dian rarely has a smiling face. "I will meet you next time, please drink." Shi Lingshan just cared about being happy, smiling stupidly. It would be even better to invite others to have a wedding wine. But the young man didn't notice that the senior sister with her head down, her charming face illuminated by the charcoal fire, was a little sad between her eyebrows. One is optimistic, the other is pessimistic. In the eyes of the former, all travels are for the day of reunion. From the latter's perspective, all encounters are a preparation for parting. This trip to go out to experience, when Su Dian has entered the far travel realm here in Hauran world, she will go to find a senior, named Xia Xinan. The other party is far away in the Qingming world. According to Master Xia, Brother Xia is doing well now, but he has changed his name and is no longer called Xia Xinan. Just listening to Master's tone, Su Dian could guess that Brother Xia had already saved a lot of family business in that world. It's just that nearly 30 years have passed, and finally there is a temple by the river where there is a shelter, but there is still no statues in the temple, not even an incense burner. How could there be such a shabby and distressed river empress? But Malanhua didn't dare to have any dissatisfaction. Year after year, she held her finger and said that her life is like a year, which is not an exaggeration. She asked a well-connected landlord to help inquire about the news. On the Zhoqing side, there are still a few elders who knew the name Malanhua and recognized her appearance when she was young. It is said that there are only 2 old folks from the same generation and age left over there now. The more so, the more Malanhua is in awe of the old man Yang in the drugstore, because if there is no accident, he will only wait for the 30-year deadline. When they arrive, the 2 old people in Zhoqing will die. The 6 women of the 3 aunts and 6 women accounted for half of them. The masters who pretended to be fools, the matchmakers who acted as matchmakers, the stable women who gave birth to the women, and the Malanhua of Xinghua Lane were all served. As a result, there was another river pair. Malanhua sighed faintly. She appeared in the deep green pool, stepped on the water, and the river spread to the stone cliff on its own. So she went up, sat on the blue stone cliff, and took out a handful of white jade from her sleeve. Comb a blue silk, ready to change a bun today. The little guys followed the goddess of water, jumped out of the water, gathered on the cliff, ran around the stone cliff, and started to riotously happily. Under normal circumstances, Malanhua will never allow them to go ashore. Not to mention that during the day, the sun is like fire, and any exposure to the sun will cause the ghosts to fly away, even at night. What's more, they dare not cross the border without authorization, otherwise they will collide with the Yangjian casually, and the yin and yang will be agitated. If they can't fight, they will die. Malanhua looked at these carefree children and sighed. She squeezed out a smiling face, with a soft voice, instructing a few words of chariots. Don't go away, be honest, don't go to the shore, or you will have to go home. Fa waited on the board. In fact, their young life on the shore is not very big. After they become ghosts, they are like falling into a kind of weird imaginary age. They grow slowly. To be precise, it is difficult to grow up, unlike the children in the market. Sprinting so fast, it seems that in the blink of an eye, you will change from a child to a teenage girl, and soon you will reach the age of marriage, get married and start a business, and have your own children, and then become very light sleepers. The old man who is used to getting up early, one day slept without opening his eyes. Malanhua raised her head and looked into the distance. In this Longshu River, the head boss is Yang Hua, the of water in the Tifu River downstream. It is said that she is the person next to the Empress Dowager of Dei. Her face is so cold that Malanhua doesn't dare to get close at all. She was also trembling. When she met those subordinates of the Shuefu who always had their eyes above the top, Malanhua only dared to make up for a smile, and never dared to put on airs. You must lose your official status. Therefore, Malanhua can only speculate about what happened outside the state through the official Shanshui official residence reports from the Zhuqing Huang Temple. According to the promise made by the old man Yang, after 30 years have passed, the old man in the small town who knows her young appearance and identity is almost gone. She can erect a statue of God, enjoy the incense, and then temper her golden body. However, Malanhua is both looking forward to it and worrying about it. The marriage between the Tiefu River and the Yuye River Water Temple is very effective. The Manta Mountain Earth Temple is also very famous, and Song Duzoping is also very famous. I went to Chiduan Mountain and Fengliang Mountain, these 2 mountain temples. It seems that scholars are asking for a sign and wishing, hoping for the success of the imperial examination and cultural protection. The effect is quite good, so until now, Malanhua has not thought of a way. In the future, even if a statue of a is erected, where does the incense come from? If you want to talk about suppressing water transport, it will be her turn. Being in the state boundary, there is no shortage of rivers and rivers. Malanhua brushed her hair and sighed. On this cratered blue stone cliff, children from the former small town who came here to fish in the mallard waters all have their own seats that they have chosen. After becoming of mountains and rivers, the vision of those ordinary masters in the sun is completely different. Located at the border between the mountain and the small town to the west, the humble Zhenju mountain turned out to be a Liju. The Dragon-Beard River at the feet of Malanhua is a veritable dragon-beard, so there were so many priceless serpentine stones in the water that year. As for the other dragon's beard, it is the main street of the town. There are crab shops, iron lock wells, and old locust trees lined up in the street. They spread all the way to the east, stopping at the east fence gate. The young bachelor, Xing Dafeng, the janitor, does not know where he died now, leaving only an unoccupied yellow mud house. There is a literary saying that it is called the tiger's dragon plate, as if those dragon kiln mouths were built on the body of this dragon. In fact, over the years, Malanhua has been afraid that the thin and weak girl in Niping Alley will come to her to turn over the old accounts. After all, I used to carry water from the iron lock well, and every time I saw the lowly maid next to this Song governor's illegitimate son, Malanhua was often the picky auntie, and she did say something unacceptable back then. After all, the widows in Nipe Alley and the orphan, no matter how poor they are not cheap. No matter how poor they are, they have an innocent identity, but this little girl with a weird name is living well and richly. The woman in the small town back then, let alone point to Jigue, anyway, as long as you quarrel and scold the street, no matter who you are, you can always pick out a bunch of faults and say a few words that disturb your heart and spine. For example, what's wrong with how many stinky money you have in your family? Do you have a cub now? Be careful to cut off the incense from your ancestors. In the future, who the money will go to is not just a matter of two things. It's too ordinary. Wait until one party can't say anything, then scratch his hair and scratch his face. Just talk about bickering, don't talk about hands-on, so the Ma in Xinghua Lane, the Gu family widow in Niping Alley, the Leaf family wife in the west of the town, and the wine seller Huang Ernyang are all first-class masters. This simple folk customs, Ruan Taijiang, Lu Chen who set up a fortune-telling booth, and Chao Duzhao, who is drunk every day. These outsiders have all personally experienced it. In fact, all those who have been in contact with the younger generation in the town, no matter what their status, realm, or more or less, will have similar feelings. Just talk about the Confucian temple discussion. Someone's words gave two resounding new nicknames for the savage co-master Firen and Wenhai's close disciples. Tuiyue Mountain lies in the saint, and the Tajushan account loses the saint, who has never won. The young hermit also threatened to give away the private seals carved by one of the two great heroes in the world. No regrets, heart to Howren. It is a pity that the wild big monsters who are qualified to participate in the discussion of Tuiyue Mountain increasingly feel that the young hermit is not his own family. Malanhua rubbed her cheeks. I was slapped hard by the little lady with sharp teeth. She took out several old Shanshui de Bayos from her sleeves. The only thing in common was that there was news about her grandson on the Dibao. In fact, she had long been so familiar with the contents of the above, and she had memorized them back and forth. These years are idle and idle, the river empress, began to change the way to learn a few more words. And this kind of Shanshui official diaries were issued from the Zhou Qinghuang temple. Basically, there will be 2 or 3 letters every quarter. Qinghuang Yi Zhangping will send the Yin Ming subordinates to the county city gods and the Shanshui gods at all levels. This makes Malanhua especially proud. When Hepo was a year round, there were not many mansion reports. When he was promoted to the river god, his official status was equal to the Qinglu of the Dali Shanshui officialdom. Suddenly the number doubled. Compared with the above, there is more than the below. To live a life, people go to high places and the water flows down, and look up at those who are living well. This is a hope for life. If you look down at the things that are not as good as you, your heart will be calm. The woman forgot who said a word. People live hard and deceive themselves, it is hope. Lu Yan took Xiaomo and Qing Tong along the corridor and went elsewhere, deliberately letting the two scholars of very different ages talk about housekeeping. The most sage master smiled and asked, Chen Pingan, how did you think of eating books? Chen Pingan was stunned, but soon figured out that the so-called eating a book refers to practicing characters. Chen Pingan explained, before I was at the city head, there was really nothing to do. It just so happened that Li Zhen, who was at the city head next door, lost this Shanshui travels to me and it came in handy. The holy master smiled and said, it's a coincidence and a coincidence, just right. Chen Pingan raised his head and glanced at the sky. The most holy master obviously meant something. If it hadn't been for refining all the text of the landscape travel notes, and some accident, even if Chen Pingan had been standing at the head of the city for 10,000 years, he would never have thought of what his brother Cui Yang would do. Probably just like Li Zhen later slandered, only those who have a brain disease can talk to fellow fellows who have a brain disease, and some can make sense and understand. The most sage master's thoughts drifted away, remembering a face. They were all in the ancient sword repair camp. The previous observation of Jian Xiu was not that Liz Hen talkative, but a well-known boring gourd, who almost didn't talk to anyone. Every time he discussed secretly, he hid in a corner or stood beside Chen Qingdu. Did not say a word from beginning to end. However, if you don't do anything, you can't say a complete victory once you are determined to challenge the sword with others, at least you can guarantee your invincibility. It can even be said to a certain extent that the contemplation of the whole life seems to be living for others, practicing swords and handing swords for the overall situation, so contemplation is the most uncomfortable one among all sword repairs. On the other hand, the dragon monarch of the same generation of sword repairers simply likes to ask people about the sword, as if winning or losing does not matter. Every time he encounters a war, he does not care about life and death, and is far more unrestrained than the observation of, don't dare to die casually. The three criminal sword repair leaders, Chen Qingdu, Guanzhao, Long Jun, are the creators of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Although it was an observer, I kept remembering it since then. Li Shixing on Falu Street once went to Ni Ping Alley to find Chen Pingan. At that time, it was the first time for Chen Pingan to return from a long trip. There were children and Xing Yi and girls in pink skirts around him. That time, Li Shixing taught a boy in Xing Yi who was accustomed to speaking without closing the door. The principle is that all the words in the world are powerful. Words and words are connected to form a sentence. The sentence is written in succession, and the great road is in it. Chen Ling didn't take this sentence seriously, his left ear went in and his right ear went out. But Chen Pingan has a deep memory. Although he was not sealed on the bamboo slips later, he still kept it in his heart. After that, Xiao Wanchu took the courage, and asked the scholar a question that she had puzzled for a long time. Why did she suddenly seem to be unable to recognize a certain word when she was studying, and she felt strange? Li Shixing smiled and gave the answer, saying that it was because the text in the book was secretly borrowed by some saints at some point. At that time, the little Wanchu obviously did not believe in this kind of gods and Taoism, so she directly refuted Mr. Li, and in the eyes of a certain bystander, it was to teach Mr. Li a lesson. This is a rare scene. After that, Chao Jun's ancestral home was repaired at Nanpif Suozhou in Ni Ping Alley, and he casually used the excuse of breaking ground on Tai Sui Head to find trouble with Chen Pingan. As a result, this last worshipper of Xianda Mountain, that time, met Li Shixing, who took the initiative to take the initiative, and met in a narrow lane in the alley. One is just a chi practitioner in the Sevuing realm, and the other is a sword repairman who claims to be between 8 and 9. Chao Jun made this weird statement because his golden core realm was not worthy of the name at that time, because the sword heart was broken, a Taoist heart is sparse, and the mental scene is reduced to a pond full of withered lotus. You must know that before the sword heart collapsed, Chao Jun was in Nanpa Suozhou, with good sword practice skills, and he was the second to none sword fairy embryo. It's just a sword repairer who is still in the golden core realm even if it is half-slapped, no matter how much paper and bamboo sticks are stuck, and even on the side of a 6th realm cultivator, no matter how hard he puts his sword, he still has a futile end. In that battle, Chen Pingan only took a general look at that time. As his vision became wider and wider, especially after he became a sword repairman, he felt more and more unusual. A chi trainer who is not a sword repairer, facing a sword repairer who asks the sword, and the realm is lower than the opponent, can he win the game? A former Haranjiashing, once wild and thorough, is now the new Lord of Heaven. With one's own power, the patriarch of the 3 teachings had to work together to deal with it. Chen Pingan was silent for a long time and asked, "Isn't it? Tao ancestor can't do it." The Holy Master shook his head and said, "It's really not even possible. Some things are extremely complicated. If the avenue deduces one thing, it will only evolve hundreds or thousands of roads to the end. No matter how many, it will not be difficult, so just casually. A cultivator of the upper 5 realms can go to be a house of yin and yang. The difficulty lies in the fact that when the heart of the people moves, the heart of the sky moves. For example, just talk about things like Feng Yuanshao in the colorful world. Of course, Daozu can be counted as her appearance. Assuming that Deus's Sayajiazi is angry and must target her, then Daozu is equal to contending with the entire colorful avenue. After all, it's not the same thing as the soldier's ancestor. But if there are a few of us, each of them transforms into a world, and only says that we are in our own territory, of course it would be considered exhaustive. I don't think it's very interesting. Daozu thinks that knowing the world will be self-righteous. The Buddha thinks that all generations of Buddhas are his own business. Anyway, as the earliest Taoist in the world, we all feel that Tao is in the world. A flower suddenly appeared in front of Chen Pingan, the vision disappeared in a flash, and the Taoist heart shook. When he stared intently again, there was no trace. Just now, I seemed to see a legendary Kirin, passing by. The most sage master looked calm and smiled freely. 3 cups lead to the road, and 1 fight is natural. Frozen, let's start a pot of wine. Sort of Coming Chapter 952. The state town in the prefecture, and the county town in Longquan County, are in the same city, and it is naturally more prosperous than the Hongzhou town in the place where the 3 rivers meet. After returning to her hometown, a woman who has been pampered and treated with grace, if she only looks at her face, put aside the crow's feet in the corners of her eyes, she looks at her in her 30s and praises her as a half-year-old mistress. A little bit of conscience. If she is not someone who knows her roots, she will mistake her for a wealthy woman from Fulu Street. There are ground dragons in the house, so wherever you need a brazier by your feet, you can save even the charcoal cage in your hand. In the early years, when she returned to her hometown from Qingsha Island, Shujian Lake, she bought a lot of houses directly on the Zhouqing side. Facts have proved that the big money spent on biting her teeth in the past did not make a lot of money, but made a lot of profits. The rent is a large sum of money in the account. Of course, she hadn't looked down on the gold and silver for a long time, and the fairy money was the money. In recent years, the women went to the house in Huaihuang County, mostly to worship their ancestors during the Qingming festival, and then went back to Nipping Lane to sit for a while. All her thoughts are still on the side of the new home, such as in the house. Everything has to be set up, and there must be a distinction between inferiority and inferiority in order to manage the family well. There is the Xianjia Inn on the mountain in Zhouqing, and she will ask the housekeeper to go there regularly to buy the Shanshuwei Dibao. This is not a small amount of expense. After all the money spent is immortal money, but the woman does not have the slightest pain. When she wants to inquire about the Middle-earth Shenzhou, especially the Baidi city, she can also show her own high-door identity. Inside the house, the woman took a few maids to chat about the housework, sat around the stove at night, warmed a pot of glutinous rice, fermented rice, each had a drink, and the flowers were filled with broken mouths. A plump maid bowed her head and took a sip of the fermented wine, and smiled sweetly. Madam, with the young master's cultivation aptitude, coupled with the identity of the young Beidasheng descendant, it will not be difficult to return to his hometown in the future and establish a sect. At that time, the woman brought a few personal servant girls from Hengbo Mansion on Qingsha Island. They are also considered to be in the countryside here. Today, I followed my wife to post spring festival couplets, burn incense to invite the door god, invite the kitchen god, etc. The wife's hometown is more elaborate. Just practice makes perfect, year after year, they get used to it. The young master Hongfu Qitian is the proud son of the first class, not talking about the young master's master Jing Qingzhu, only the teacher Gu Han Chao Sei is an immortal, as well as Lu Dao Chen, the master of the Liuli Pavilion, and his brother Fu Su, and even the great sword immortal. Which one of them is not a person on the mountain? Any one of them, come here. Aquarius Island, let alone the True Realm sect, is to go to the Divine Envoy sect and meet Qi Tianjun, and you should also call each other a friend, and then be the guest. Regarding Gu Kan's practice in Baidi City, the only people in the house who knew the truth, except for the women, were their personal servant girls. This is true. It's just that she didn't say everything. Gu Kan's great achievements are only one aspect. They are a few, who is not afraid of Gu Kan. Afraid of the demon king of Shijianhu, they are simply scared to their bones. Strange to say, when Gu Kan grew up, he seemed to have become a Confucian scholar. When he returned to his hometown last time, and saw Gu Kan again, even if Gu Kan's expression was gentle, they were even more afraid and became more frightened. If you say that Gu Kan, the disciple of Lu Jimao, the true monarch of Qingsha Island, is a little madman who is likely to provoke murder any time and anywhere, he is a natural wild cultivator. Then Gu Kan, a young man who was later, seemed to have become a serious and unpredictable person in the city, even standing face to face, as if he never knew what Gu Kan was thinking. Gu Kan, who walked out of Shijianhu, was seriously inconsistent with his age in terms of state, nature, and means. Before leaving his hometown, Gu Kan called them together in private. Not only did he have no arrogance, and did not have the domineering arrogance of his youth, but he was kind and pleasant. They are even allowed to make a mistake once or twice. But it is required that they need flying swords to spread the letter to Baidi City every year. As for what is written in the letter, they will follow them, even if they are just asking for advice on some problems of spiritual practice, there is no problem. Moreover, the expense of the letter from the mountain is up to him, but he just told them not to talk to his mother about this matter. Finally, Gu Kan smiled with them, and talked with you some heart-wrenching words, don't take it seriously. There are 3 chapters of the agreement between the two parties, one of which is to not allow them to fan the flames on the mother's side and turn a small matter into a troublesome matter that needs to alarm the county government or the Dali court. They are not allowed to cause trouble outside, but if someone else provokes them, no matter who the other party is and what background they have, as long as they are in charge, then there is no need to be afraid of things. Gu Kan will take care of it, because they are now half of his family. Such a Longxing land requires a lot of walking. As for the little girl named Ma Di, she is a ghost. She has worn fox fur talisman in these years, and seems to like to buy some rouge gouache often to reward herself. After Lu Jimao folded his hands, he walked to the side of the mountain gate archway, but did not go to sit in the house, just glanced at the Spring Festival couplets and the word blessing over there. It seems that it was the second-class offering to Qingsha Island, and it was posted by the Guixiu who was born in Juxian Mansion and his concierge, Hong Su. Lu Jimao walked straight to the ferry, a breeze blew by, and an unexpected guest appeared beside him. Lu Jimao turned his head and smiled, "The Lord is so leisurely." The old man at the side of the ferry nodded, "Really think about it." "Don't think about it anymore. I don't want to think about your visit to Myanji Island next time. Replace this sentence with me. Lu Laoqing, now the sect master of the True Realms sect, is also the first mountain cultivator in Aquarius to rank among the 5 realms. The implication was that if he promised him, Lu Jimao would be the 4th suzerain in the history of Zhenjingzong. Lu Jimao shook his head and said, "My fate, I can't be the leader. I wanted to succeed the suzerain and become the co-master of the book and the lake. It's not that I still know how to be a human being, and am almost going to lose my life, and now I'm afraid of it every time I want to come. Sovereign, don't make it difficult for me." Lu Laoqing nodded and said, "Then I will make another arrangement." Lu Jimao sighed for no reason. Lu Laoqing smiled and said, "People on the mountain don't speak the language of the mountain." Lu Jimao asked tentatively, "Is it easy to deal with the new Hujuan?" Lu Laoqing said, "It's still okay now, and it will definitely become more and more difficult in the future. It's just that compared to the past, it's always easier to fight with that young accountant." Lu Jimao suddenly laughed, "I can't imagine that I will go on a night tour with Lu Laoqing on Myanji Island, so I don't have to worry about being killed." Lu Laoqing smiled, turned his head and looked at the lake. The islands were like an immovable boat. The waves are scouring the sand, and the boat is walking at night. In the early years of Shujianhu, everyone had to pay more attention. The only rule was that there was no rule, and it was not easy to sleep peacefully. On the other side of the mountain gatehouse, the ghost repair horse is far-reaching, bringing the concierge with red cakes, and staying vigil together here. Anyway, a house is almost the same on the foot of the mountain, and it is naturally close to each other. Xingyi said something about the past, but he couldn't get around the two of them anyway, Mr. Chen earlier and Gu Kan later. Whenever Xingyi mentioned the latter, Ma Di couldn't help but ridicule a few words, and he didn't know that he was afraid of Gu Kan before. As a result, after the last separation of the year, someone started to cry silently. Was it extremely sad or was he crying with joy? Xingyi looked embarrassed. He had never been able to quarrel with Ma Di. He only dared to mumble. Who knew that Gu Kan's temperament would change drastically? Mr. Chen once said that if we can become the parents of our parents, and we will become the parents of our children in the future, it may be a debt collection or a debt repayment. When Mr. Chen said this, he smiled and said that he is just a debt collector. The room fell silent, and there was a slight cracking sound of charcoal in the brazier. Ma Di suddenly exclaimed, "Why didn't I know that Mr. Chen talked to you about this?" Xingyi said helplessly, "Mr. Chen and I always have time alone." Ma Di complained, "When Mr. Chen is alone with me, why don't you talk about it?" They were drinking wine, all made from Hong Su's hometown. Xingyi said some of Mr. Chen's gossip about drinking, saying that there are two things in life that are the most chewy. They reunited with old friends after a long time, half drunk after drinking, and turned around. Judging from his life, tea drinking is sweet. Ma Yuanzi's face was a bit reluctant, and he said, "Chen Pingnan is a little knowledgeable. People who have eaten ink are different." Hong Su blinked and smiled, "Why don't you call Master Chen?" Ma Yuanji sighed, "I have agreed to write a book for me, and write a good story about me and His Royal Highness the Princess." However, I was so slow that I didn't know whether the beginning of the article was finished with a few thousand words. Ma Di turned his head and looked at Hong Su, who only dared to shook his head quietly, indicating that this was not the case at all. Xingyi thought of a woman for no reason. After so many years, she would still miss her a lot. Probably the so-called worry is to hang a portrait of a beloved woman in my heart, and I never forget it. Ma Di asked casually, then Mr. Chin said that he can be married in this life. What is it? Xingyi smiled and nodded, and gave an answer. It's a return. On the top floor corridor of the tallest building in the town Demon Tower, the Taoist Chunyang with his sword on his back, along with that Xiaoma and Qing, saw a vision almost at the same time. With the building at their feet as the center of the circle, the figures of the gods of mountains and rivers and monks appeared one after another in the sky. They turned their backs to the top corridor and arranged several people in sequence, as if they had opened dozens of mirrors at the same time. It's an unprecedented event. The visitors' Patriarch Hall discusses matters with the same mind, only discussing one thing and doing only one thing. Chong the Dan River water god, Li Jin got 2 gold scrolls, left the bookstore, returned to the water mansion, bathed and changed clothes, put on a Jiangshui Jingshan official robe, lit a scent of water, paid homage to Tonggishao in the south, and raised his heart. Read the wish, silently in my heart, may the dead rest in peace, and the living will be safe. The embroidered river god, a righteous of river water with a green snake entwining his arms, respects the fragrance in awe, and may the broken mountains and rivers of Tonggishao be restored to integrity, and the heroes of the battlefield in Izhou will be reincarnated. Yuye River, the goddess of water, Yi Qingzhu, lit a stick of water scent, and muttered words. Adults don't remember the villains. I would like to do my best for Tonggishao and wish Izhou a peaceful and prosperous territory. The Lotus Route blessed land in the Luopa Mountain, headed by Shui Jiao Hongxia, led the rivers and water gods in the blessed land, each lit a stick of fragrance, the incense curled up into the air, and suddenly all swayed to the south. Beiju Luzhou Jidu, the old Jidu middle shrine is water, and now Longting Holy Yuan, a black-robed boy with a pair of golden eyes, in Dajuha's mansion, said aloud his wish that Tonggishao, when the weather is smooth in the land of the continent. The Yuan Dynasty Chongxian Department Yunshao Palace, National Teacher Yang Qinggan, the old man held a tail inscribed with the word Fengshen in his hand, and lit the fragrance of 3 sticks. Next to the old real man, was the Upper-level monk with the Taoist name Tuning Mud. Yang Hojua looked respectful, holding incense in both hands with the ancestors of the Yang family, facing the south. The skeletal beach swayed the river, and Shui Yuanxing, He Bo, was no longer in the costume of the old boat in a boat, but appeared golden, wearing a robes, and lighting the fragrance of water. Da de Lingyuan Gong Shenlin, the water of the old Nanchuan water hole. She stands tall like a hibiscus in the distant mountains, standing at the gate of the government with her back facing the Dio Palace, plaque. Shenlin faces the south, wishing Tonggishao Shi and Nianfeng. In the territory of Yinping, the Tsangyan Lake Shui Jun Yin Ho, who leads 1 lake, 3 rivers and 2 canals, wears a purple robe, across a treasure bottle island, holds incense in both hands, pays homage to Tonggishao, wishes the land of Tonggishao is rejuvenated and Vientiane is new. On the dense snow peak of Xiandu Mountain, Yuangshan from Moxiandu, after lighting the incense, hopes that the Tonggishao surname will be safe and sound. The word mountain is the natal word for the great sacrifice of Li Ji Shuigong. Just as Chen Pingon guessed, the word water borrowed by Brother Cui Yang is of course the old man who wrote a piece of Wen Tian in Shijianhu. The 4 articles of Mountain Ghost, Shijiang, East Lord, and Calling the Soul were given to Wen Xing. This old gentleman does not belong to the Confucian Temple Orthodox context and belongs to self-reliance. Therefore, this old master's stick heart fragrance will be the most effective stick of water fragrance in the world. It seems that the old gentleman is responsible for closing the matter of the water gods of all continents lighting incense. The scholar again invited all the monarchs to dream, and borrowed from the monarch Wantongshan. You think the 6 classics of God, the more you blaspheme the sea, the more you think about the mountains, and I am the host. Beiyue of Aquarius Island, Weibo of Pian Mountain. Zhongyue Mountain Jun Jinqing. Nanyue female mountain monarch, Fan Junmao, each lit a mountain incense to pray for Tonggishao and eliminate disasters. Zhongti Shenzhou, the Jizingshan Pavilion in the Daong Dynasty. Immortal Yenya and Taoist companion Wei Zi, in a broken blessed land full of savages and gregarious ghosts, they share the same incense to pay homage to Tonggishao. In the Sui Mountain of the Middle Earth, the named Dajiao, the mountain monarch traveled around, showing a majestic statue of the golden body, facing the southeast direction of the awe-inspiring world, holding incense in both hands. Deiyue Jushu Mountain is one of the 2 princely prince mountains. The Niaoju Mountain is a real person on land, and Taoist priests conferred the emperor. The Laoshan god Gong Shinzhou of Xiangtou Mountain. Aquarius Island. Dayunling Mountain goddess flooded the watershed mountain Weiwei, leading 2 mountain temples to accompany the goddess, facing the south, and worshipping incense together. The last person who seemed to be the mountain fragrance for the heroes of the mountains in the world, turned out to be the pure young Taoist whose real body was in Aquarius, Lu Yen. On the corridor on the top floor of the Jinyao building, Shema and Qingtong all thanked the pure young Taoist beside him, and Lu Yen smiled and returned the gift. The incense curls and the stars are dotted. The trickling water converges into rivers. The accumulation of soil into mountains, the wind and rain are prosperous. The most sacred master looked at the gradually disappearing figures, stroked his beard and smiled. Let's turn around and let the Confucian temple side record them and this matter in the book. Chen Pingan is not good to say anything about this. The holy master asked, do you still have a lot of merit in your hand? Chen Pingan nodded, and roughly estimated that about 30% remained. The thunder is loud, and the rain can't be said to be small. To be honest, it is already a big weather, and it has completely solved Tonggish's urgent needs. This sounds like ordinary, in fact, it is not easy, just like you are pure Takeo. He changed his sigh of anger. It wasn't a move to hang himself with medicine, but he was completely alive. The most sage master turned his head to look at Chen Pingan, and said with a smile, but if you end it with this, won't you think about it once in the future, you will inevitably regret it once after all? Chen Pingan was puzzled, what else could he do? Is it possible that the most sage master is willing to help match the bridge and gift the remaining 3 virtues to those who are not familiar with the landscape gods? The holy master smiled, I want to make a difference. As soon as I don't want to intervene in any specific affairs now, otherwise, it is definitely not a good thing for Haren. Besides, my face is so worthless and needs to be. Cheeky, go out in person, knock on the door of your family, and ask them if they want to do this business with you. How proper. Chen Pingan became more and more confused and had to wait for the following. The most sage master didn't sell the gates either, and said with a smile, it's not that the family doesn't enter the house. Although the seniors of your Wenqing lineage have different congenital dispositions, there are always a few things that will be particularly sensitive. At first it was Qi Jingchen, who entrusted Bai Yi. Then, the people on the Great Wall of Jinqi, entrusted Qin Qingdu, and then Jun Qian entrusted Jing Xing Shiping before going to the Qingming world. Finally, it was Cui Huang. He didn't say anything, but what he meant, the Confucian temple knows all about it. In fact, it's the same thing, giving their Confucian temple merits to the younger brother for disposal. The most sage master patted the young man on the shoulder, so, apart from being given hope, it is something that makes people feel that you will not be alone. Then walking with others in the great road, it must be the same. Not only these brothers, but also believe that their husbands' close disciples, their little brothers, can provoke the future leader of the Wenqing line, and will protect the disciples of his husband. It is also a kind of spirit among the 5 brothers and sisters who have a direct lineage of Wenqing, who does not need to communicate with each other. Maybe we have all been disappointed in this world, but we are all willing to place hope in this world. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.